Hello there, everybody. Since the dawn of creation, we've all asked the same question. Not where we're from, not how we got here, not the origin of everything. No, the question we've always asked is God the a-hole? Yeah, absolutely. So welcome back to all my friends, all my family, all my wonderful subscribers out there. Today is the part 3 or something, part 4. I don't know where we're up to. We're reading the Bible, kind of. And we are asking the big questions, the questions that we all want to know. Thank you so much for joining me and giving me your time. If you could like and subscribe, that would certainly help me out. I really appreciate it. Yeah, that's a good point. Which God? Look, take your pick. At the moment we're doing Yahweh, so the God of the Old Testament, because we're starting. I thought that the Genesis 7 to 8 would kind of give it away, but that's a good question. Which God? Because I guess there are a couple of gods in the Old Testament. There's Baal as well, or we could be doing the brother. Who knows? And I do want to. Yeah, I do want to give a big shout out to Yahooligan, who became a member level commentator. Yahooligan! Absolutely fantastic. Thank you so much. Winner, chicken dinner. The god of assholes. Well, man, it wouldn't surprise me. It would not surprise me. Let me just ping out to the rest of the Discord what I'm currently doing, because I am a little bit unorganized today. Surprise, right? Surprise. But yeah, it's so good to see you all. As I said, we're doing Genesis 7 to 8, and we are asking that question, and I will be conducting a poll to find out what you think. If you think that God is an arsehole, because you do get to vote and comment, and of course I'll be going through your opinion. So. I hope you're doing well. Just quickly, tomorrow there is the member stream. Just a couple of things to wrap up. Tomorrow's the member stream. So if you are a member, you can come and join in. I'll be talking a bit about the news that I've been watching from the US in that stream, because I think it's really important. I'm not going to do it in this stream because it's not really what the stream is for, but I'd love to talk about that. And I will be doing a course, Fundamentalist Fails, on Friday, so come along for that if you want. That's my Friday, not your Friday. If you are upside down, or the right side up, please come along to that, because that's a lot of things. Where's your chicken dinner? I'm getting to it. Belly, why are you so needy, my friend? Look, there you go. All right, there's one for each person watching. I think. I don't know. I didn't count people watching. I really didn't. So there you go. Okay, so let's get into it. It's time. It is absolutely time, and I love it. So first off the bat, we have Genesis 7. So you get your Bible. I know you all have a Bible like directly beside you at all times, in case you need to grab it to save your soul, or checks God's position on I don't know, slavery or something. I know you all have a Bible like just directly beside you, ready to go at all times. So if you want to, you can grab that Bible and check to see whether I have made this up. It's possible. It is possible. Billy. Okay, yeah, no, don't we all? Okay. Billy, you've lost control. Stop the stupidity. It's so good to see you, mate. And yeah, Hooligan, awesome to see. Left-handed Jedi, it's either 42 or 69. They are very, very, very popular numbers. I will give you that. I think I like the old 42 from Hitchhikers is really good. So first off the bat, we've got Yahweh, who sent in a post saying, am I the arsehole for flooding the entire earth and killing everything except for one family? So yesterday we did, last week we did sort of whether God was the arsehole for planning to destroy the earth. Now we're looking at whether he's the arsehole for how he did it. So here's what happened. The state of the world I'd created had fallen to chaos and evil, so I made the decision that I needed to flood the world. There was this one guy, Noah, who actually listened when I warned him. Yeah, no, that just one guy apparently, just one guy. I feel like if you warn the world, if you're the omnipotent, omniscient, all-powerful master of the universe, and you warn people that you're going to destroy their world, and only one dude in his family believes you, I feel like you haven't made a convincing case. I feel like you could have warned people a bit better, right? Like, I don't know how you can be the omnipotent master of the universe and only convince one family. It's a bit up in the air. I don't know how that works, but apparently that's how it works. I told him to bring his family into the ark along with a pair of unclean animals and 7 pairs of clean animals and birds, so we had some spare. Yeah, that's a bit weird. I don't know. So the weird thing about it is kind of the way that they have to sort of like frame it in order to get the story to work. So the reason why Noah had, like, because you're like, well, why 7 clean animals? Why is that? It's because the first thing he did was sacrifice them when he got to the end of the flood. Like, he made sacrifices to the gods. So you can't have a pair of animals and sacrifice them at the end of the flood, right? Like, because then there's no animals. That line is then extinct, right? So they had to have 7 pairs of clean animals, which are the ones you sacrifice to the gods. So this story gets more and more ridiculous as you sort of piece together that, you know, the reason why he had 7 animals is so that he could sacrifice some to Yahweh after the flood. Sure he did. Yeah, of course. Of course. Noah did exactly what I told him, which was refreshing after my previous experience with humans. Yeah, and just Noah. Yeah, I feel like you haven't made a convincing case, but never mind. When Noah reached about 600... Yeah, it says that, yeah. I told him to enter the ark with his family. I explained to him that the flood would begin in 7 days. I also made it so all the animals went to Noah so he could preserve them. So I've got issues with that. I've got issues with that because, like, how did the sloths in South America get to the ark, right? How did the koalas in Australia get to the ark? Because it wasn't that, like, somebody said in a comment, I can't remember, like, I think it was in my debate against Hovind, somebody sort of said, oh, he went round and picked them all up. No, that's not what the Bible says. The Bible said that the animals went to him. So you've got like 7 days to go, and somehow the sloths make it from South America all the way to, you know, Israel over ocean somehow. I don't understand this. It's so wacky. It's a wacky story. It's wild. And what did the koalas eat on the way? They famously can only eat eucalyptus leaves. That's all they will eat. And and koalas are generally so stupid. Well, I mean, they might not be stupid. They might just be really high on eucalypt oil, like, all the time. But anyway, they're so sort of nonsensical animals that unless the eucalyptus leaf is on a branch, they don't consider it food. Like, even it's so weird. They're just weird and obnoxious and smelly, and they're awful. They're awful. It's so weird. It's so weird. Yeah, and Jedi, you're right. It's like, you'd think people would have noticed a line of animals, but no, they were too busy being evil to see that. Yeah. Kind of very, very strange. But, you know, we're talking about all animals, so, you know, I just don't get how all animals are supposed to travel from, you know, the ends of the earth to the ark. It's wild. and presumably in 7 days. I also made it so all of the animals went to Noah so he could preserve them. I shut up all of them in the boat so that at that point there's no going back and they would have to ride out the flood. Yeah, it's said that the Bible actually says that that God closed the door and sealed them in. Right now, I don't know if that was God directly, but apparently Noah didn't close himself in there. That God did that apparently. So Jesus closed the door and was the door, and presumably because it's very strange. So I have to explain this one. It's so weird, right? Because Jesus is described in the New Testament as a door, and it says there's a door in the boat. So some Christians, not all of them, but some Christians say that Jesus in the Old Testament, he was the door of the ark. And it's kind of this really weird argument to say that Jesus was in the Old Testament. But if God closed the door to the ark, it means Jesus closed himself to the ark. It's so weird. It's so strange. But yeah, some of them do say that, and it's hilarious. About like pandas. Yeah, pandas playing. They'll barrel stop playing even for mummy daddy time. Yeah, they'll barely stop playing even for mummy daddy time. You're right, yeah. And pandas only eat bamboo. So pandas apparently, and Noah apparently brought enough bamboo for the pandas for a year. A year aboard this ship, apparently. Apparently. They'd have to ride out the flood, yeah. So they're trapped in the ark because God sealed the door behind them. He wasn't like doing it temporarily. They were, it's ride or die time. Ride or die time, people. That's what we're doing here. Then I made it rain, and I'm not talking about cash. It wasn't a drizzle or a shower that passed. I made a torrent that just kept coming. Woohoo! That's what he said. At the same time, I made waters below burst open so they would get flooded from above and below. Yeah, they're getting it from both directions. I don't know what the waters below are. They keep alluding to these fountains of the deep kind of thing, which I don't think is a thing. Like, I don't think it's a thing. There's hydro vents down there. There's some water trapped in rocks, but, you know, I don't know what these fountains of the deep are. It's not really a thing. As the floodwaters rose, everything outside the ark died. People, livestock, wild animals, birds, nothing living on dry land survived. The ark floated while the waters kept rising until even the mountains were covered. And this is very, very similar to the stories of the Atrahasis and the Epic of Gilgamesh, who also had flood stories in it. And the similarities are actually quite striking. The flood lasted 40 days and nights, but the waters stayed high far longer. Everything that had filled the earth with violence was wiped out, completely obliterated, except for some fossils that would be found later. Yeah, because that sounds reasonable. Look, flooding can cause fossils, sure, but there's other ways fossils can be made. Like, it's not the only way. So, you know, we can tell where there's been floods, and the world does not have evidence of a global flood. It just doesn't. I'm sorry. It doesn't. We know of areas that have been flooded, like the Great Missoula Plains over in the United States. Clearly was flooded by a massive influx of water. You know, we can see the scrapes that boulders have made that have been tossed. Definitely a floodplain. No doubt about it. That is not the entire world. Like, we don't see that evidenced in the entire world when we should, which is interesting. So, presumably, the world was flooded, but God arranged it so that most of the world looked like it wasn't flooded. Presumably. You know, I'm certainly not mind reading for God. Only Noah, his family, and the animals with them remained alive. The world was finally quiet and didn't have all of the previous chaos going on. Yeah, well, I'm glad it's quiet for you. So I've had a lot of criticism with people saying that drowning everything was cruel, that saving one family was not enough, but I feel like it was deserved considering the state of the world. Am I the arsehole here? Edit. No, there was no other way I could clean up the mess. Stop asking if I could have done it differently. Yeah, and that's one of my questions. You know, like if you are the sort of omnipotent master of the universe, why flood everything? Like, why not just, get rid of the um animals and people in a humane and painless way? Like, why is it that you have to flood everything? It's not a great way to die. There's a lot of panic involved. There's a lot of stuff involved. Like, why drowning? Um, God, and I'll put up a poll. You can vote on the poll because that's a tradition over here for flooding the world. So last week he was planning to do it. He actually followed through. So it's nice to see an authority follows through on something they promise. It's nice to see. I will say that. Not sure that flooding the entire world was nice. And you get into sort of paradoxes as well. Like, for instance, there's sort of the paradox of a god that is omniscient or knows the outcome of everything. So God knew that he was going to flood the world before when he created humans. Presumably he knew that. He knew that that would be the eventual outcome. So why not create humans differently? Is definitely a question. Like, why not create them in a way that makes it, say, impossible to be chaotic and evil, or at least be that chaotic and evil? I mean, we can breed dogs for increased domestication purposes. Got dogs with like sort of amenable natures. That has happened in domestication. You just breed the ones that are more less wild, basically. That's a thing. Why couldn't God have done that if he knew that this would be the outcome? It's kind of weird. Kind of weird. I yeah, very, very strange. I think there's a million things you could have done as an omniscient being that would avoid having to drown the entire world in water. Like, there's got to be better ways to do this, right? I don't know, but like, why is just it's just a bit weird. Considering he can create universes, you'd imagine he could create a better way to do it. Like yeah. I will go through the comments, and again, Yahooligan, so good to see you, my friend. The God of Assholes. Well, I mean, it's the Old Testament, so apparently yes at this point. We're gonna see a marked change when it comes to the New Testament. So the Old Testament, you've got God who's vengeful, angry, jealous, all of these, wrathful kind of thing, really vindictive guy. And then you have Jesus, who ostensibly or is claimed to be God by others in the New Testament. He's all about peace, love, and forgiveness. So, split personality much, but holy crap. Holy crap. Clean animals which aren't described for quite a few years. Yeah, that's right. So what Jinx is sort of talking about here is the verses which actually separate the clean and unclean animals and codify what they are is later in the Bible. So that gives us some sort of hint that even though these events are supposed to be before later passages, they were probably written either at the same time or afterwards, right? Because what you've got to remember about the Bible, especially the Old Testament, is that it probably wasn't written in chronological order, so that, these stories were oral traditions, and they've put it in what, the chronological order that it's supposed to be in, that people tell these stories about. but that doesn't mean to say that it was written down in that order. Like, they may have been written down roughly at the same time, with them going, oh, well, let's write down these stories and tell them to, you know, the people, kind of thing. Tell them to our offspring and to our sort of lineage, and to our children and the children's children. So, yeah, whether they were written in that order is completely up in the air. Nobody really knows. Maybe Dr. Kip knows. That's a good question for him. Like, do we know what chronological order these were written in, if at all? Can you say genetic bottlenecking? I knew you could. Yeah, so that's the big one, right? So the question, like, humans had a genetic bottleneck. I think we got down to a few thousand members, like 5,000 or something at one point. So without enough genetic diversity, you essentially have problems, and you're almost, you know, species are almost doomed to go extinct when they get down to low enough numbers, because there's no way to sort of get genetic diversity enough that mutations won't cause definite problems. Sort of inbreeding causes massive problems for that species. So, you know, one of the things that is a problem with the Ark story is that you're essentially saying, hey, there's this massive genetic bottleneck that, A, we see no evidence of that we should in the genetic codes of these animals, and 2, these animals probably would go extinct through flaws in the genetic sequence and inbreeding, basically. It would be a catastrophe for every single species if they were reduced to just a male and a female. And of course, that applies to Adam and Eve as well. And there's a lot of apologetics around it. Oh, they were perfect DNA and all of this sort of things. But really, it really is just another sort of showing that, hey, there's problems with this that, you know, if God can change the genetics to be perfect so there's no inbreeding, surely there's a better way he can get rid of all of the animals so that he doesn't have to drown them all. I don't know. It's really, really weird. Hello, Robin. So good to see you. And Jinx, so good to see you as well. Can't make shit up. Well, duh, no joke. The funniest one of Kent's, I think, my favorite thing of Kent's was the ice canopy. Because not only did it, so if you're unfamiliar, the ice canopy was what I'll generously call a hypothesis, in order to solve something called the heat problem. The heat problem is basically a problem with young Earth creationism, that if the Earth is only 6 to 10,000 years old, the heat buildup from things like radioactive decay and friction of tectonic plates, like the plates rubbing together, like volcanoes and things, all of the heat would just turn the Earth into a molten ball of magma. So Kent Hovind, in all of his, yeah, I'm not going to call it wisdom, all of his ridiculous apologetics, came up with saying, well, there was an ice canopy around the Earth, like a shell made of ice around the Earth, and that kept it cool. But sunlight could still come in because the ice was transparent. And when I heard this, I started to laugh my ass off, because if you have a transparent physical container around something, something happens called the greenhouse effect. That's why we have glass, transparent glass in a greenhouse. It's because shortwave radiation, or rays from the sun directly, go in. When they hit something, they change to long-wave radiation, or heat, and that heat can't get out of the physical container. So shortwave will go through transparent materials, long-wave or heat won't. So it will bake the whatever's inside the container and basically raise its temperature. And that's how a greenhouse works. It basically uses the light coming in through the transparent material and then the heat getting trapped by it to increase the temperature. So not only did Kent Hovind suggest an ice canopy which failed to solve the heat problem, he suggested something that would make it 10 times worse. And I found that so freaking hilarious. I just, like, beautiful. Beautiful, Kent. Beautiful. Perfect. Perfect. You would think people would have known. Yeah. Yeah. No, you would think you would have noticed, and the thing is that there were people around at this time, right? Because there's people around at this time who didn't believe Noah about the flood. They're like, no, 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 no. We're not going to believe you about the flood, right? We're going to take our chances. You're crazy. You're a crazy guy hearing voices. You're a madman. And presumably these very same people would have seen like two of every animal, thousands upon thousands of animals streaming in from all over to get on his boat, and they still didn't believe him. This is just normal occurrences. You build a barn, there's just animals come from everywhere to fill it. You build a boat, animals just come. This is a normal occurrence back then. We're not up to the talking donkey yet, but yes, that is definitely a fan favorite. Chuck McNorris, definitely a fan favorite. I do like that one. I have my favorite biblical stories. I think the Samson story is great. It's hilarious. It's awesome. I love it. The pandas, the koala bears. There's animals with very specialized diets. How did they survive? Did the pandas bring their own bamboo? Right? Because if Noah stayed where he was with the ark and the animals came to him, then he wouldn't have gone round and picked up like eucalyptus for the koalas or bamboo for the pandas. He would have stayed where he was. Did the animals bring it with them? These are the questions I have. Right? Like, what happened there? That's how the animals got there. Jesus sailed them over from the Americas. Look, all right. This isn't the Book of Mormon, okay? This isn't the Book of Mormon. All right. I don't know, like, if that's what you're alluding to, but look, come on. The Book of Mormon is funnier, but it is also more boring. So, I've read the Book of Mormon. It is so boring, like, seriously. But, hey, maybe it was the Nephilim. It didn't mention the Nephilim. Maybe they brought them all over. I don't know. Billy says, I like the bit where one of the prophets sent a bear to kill some children for making fun of his baldness, which I find to be completely fair on all levels. Yeah, that one's actually hilarious. That's a bit later. So, hey, no spoilers, Billy. No spoilers. I mean, the book's only been around for thousands upon thousands of years, so I'm not sure if you're spoiling that much. I think that if you haven't read the Bible yet, then it's on you, quite frankly. It's on you. Forest is good, snow covered. Nope. Hooligan says, I never understood this. If God can magically create water, why not say he also warped physics and erased all evidence of the flood? So there's a problem there, Hooligan. And the problem that they have is that once you start to do things that are overly miraculous, the question sort of comes, well, if he can erase the evidence of the flood, why have a flood at all? Why not just annihilate every living creature and, that roams on the earth without doing a flood at all, if he wants to do it that way, right? So, they sort of allude at sort of very minor miracles, like, oh, God made the animals all jump on the ark or go towards Noah and they put them on the, some real sort of, they're really sitting on the line. But once they start to go into, well, he changed reality, the question is, well, why bother with a flood? Why bother opening the fountains of the deep? Why bother, like, raining for 40 days and 40 nights? Why not just annihilate, Thanos, click all of those living things out of there except for Noah and his family? Look, I mean, a more realistic story is that God got the is it 5 or 6 Infinity Stones? I don't know my Marvel lore. I don't know my lore. I'm sorry. Let's say six Infinity Stones. Okay, I think it was one on the thumb and one on the back. I can't remember. But like, it is a more realistic to sort of story to say that God got the 6 Infinity Stones and Thanos snapped all living creatures from the earth except for Noah and his family. That would be more convincing than having to do a flood, basically. And I want to say a big hello and welcome to the Ember members and Embers that have just jumped over here. Thank you so much, Ember. You are amazing, and the world deserves you. Kind of. Some of the world deserves. Well, most of the. Well, a bit of the world deserves you. Most of it doesn't. Most of it does. Look, if I was Thanos snapping, I would definitely keep Ember. I'll tell you that right now. All right? Like, that is definitely a thing that I would do. Somebody actually said something that was interesting. I was watching somebody talk about the Thanos snap. And, so the Thanos snap is, so it's argued, right? Like, I don't mean to... No, actually, I'll take that back. Yes, I do mean to tangent. That's exactly what I mean to do. I'm going to tangent. Get ready for it. And there's arguments over whether that would have solved the problem. Like, if he takes away half the universe, won't they just reproduce and you'll be in the same problem in, however, I think there's a certain time frame for, like, the population to double. It's once every 50 years or something. I can't remember the number it is, but won't you be back in exactly the same situation, and this time without the Infinity Stones to be able to solve it? So yeah, there's some massive plot holes in there. But what if Thanos snapped and he was like, he said, oh well, half the people should be wiped out, and he happened to be part of that half. I imagine that he made it so he wasn't, which is kind of hypocritical, to be honest with you. But But to get back to your hooligan's question, yeah, they can say that he did that, but then making a flood becomes sort of pointless and an exercise in futility, and why do that at all? So they've got to limit the amount of miracle they're doing, because at that point, doing a flood becomes completely nonsensical. They might as well just Infinity Stone it. Yeah. Because Christians are dumbasses. No, not all Christians are. Not all Christians are. I don't think so. Yeah, absolutely. And that's just what I was talking about, Andreas. Why not just snap his fingers like Thanos did? Yeah. If he's going to do that level of miracle, but the whole thing is that he made the flood to create an ordeal that Noah had to go through, kind of thing. That's one of the explanations that I've heard. He needed the ordeal and for Noah to actually have to work through this kind of thing. It was like a trial for Noah. Weird that the Bible doesn't say that anywhere. Not sure why the animals were on trial either. There's a few things that sort of lurk in there that are questions that I would have, but yeah. That's why they can't say, hey, it was just a whole big miracle. Hey, Eric, so good to see you, mate. Haven't seen you for a while. Skeptics and scoundrels. I've always liked that despite his omnipotence, God handles all of his problems like a Bronze Age savage. Indeed, yes. And even at one point in the Old Testament, it said that he could not defeat a neighboring tribe because they had chariots made of iron. And that is just hilarious that a god would be restricted by chariots in the Iron Age. Yeah, kind of weird. Left-handed Joe said, God feeling regret for making humans? Yikes. Yeah, kind of, yeah. Yeah, it's kind of weird, and there's some apologetics around it, like God felt sorry that he made humans, but he still did it anyway. Because if he... so the argument is that an omniscient being that knows the outcome of every decision he makes wouldn't feel regret over anything. He'll say, that's what I knew was coming, because he would have known what was coming. But so it's very weird for an omniscient being to experience regret at all. Yeah, it's so good to see you, Eric. It really is, mate. I've missed your particular brand of sarcasm and insight. I ain't inbred. Feet are supposed to have 7 toes. Well, shucks. Okay, Billy. Yeah. Look, I believe you're inbred if your name's Billy Bob. Okay, if it's Billy Bob, I've got questions. That's a low blow at all rednecks everywhere. I'm sorry. That's right, Billy. 7 toes is normal. Absolutely. The mooch. Okay, yes. The lunar bukkake is pretty funny as well. Yes, the idea that the craters on the moon were rocks. This is Kent Hovind at his finest. That's another, champagne moment, because like the idea that the craters in the moon were caused by rocks flung into space by the fountains of the deep opening is hilarious. It's yeah. Angels with baseball bats took care of the meteors. Well, yeah. Yeah. Well, I mean, it's always hilarious because every time I have Islamic people saying that the Quran is super accurate, it's always fun to remind them that it says that meteorites are lamps thrown by devils at the earth. Yeah, it's great. It's fantastic. Really scientifically accurate there. Um, I've told Skeptic. Yeah, absolutely, absolutely. I would love to go on Skeptic Haven. I was going to be on there at one point. I'm not sure what happened. It kind of got cancelled, but that's okay. That's okay. Hovind also claims that Adam and Eve heard continual music from the stars. Okay. The stars sang to them, or are we talking about like they just had a turntable up there? I don't know what you're talking about. I haven't heard that one. Look, Big Bad Mama is definitely our Hovind expert on the panel. Like Big Bad Mama does some fantastic stuff doing Hovind's. What would you say? Insightful? No, let's not say that. His creative, let's say, explanations behind all of the problems. Venusians were addicted to fossil fuels. Yeah, so if you're unaware, Venus, the planet, is in extreme greenhouse effects. That's what happens when you get incredible greenhouse effects. And sort of a whole bunch of electromagnetic storms, a whole bunch of like insane heat. It's yeah. I find it funny that we sort of sent a probe to Venus, maybe expecting, because it's sort of about the same size as Earth, and we kind of knew it had an atmosphere. We sent a probe in, or I think America sent a probe in, trying to, find the atmosphere. We even thought there might be sort of, organisms on there, living on there. And it kind of just gave a squawk as it went through the atmosphere and basically didn't explode, but it basically just melted all of the components to the probe. Like it was done. It was done like a dinner. Yeah, turns out Venus would be way harder to colonize than Mars. Way harder. Talking donkey, what is this, Shrek? The Ark is the love boat. Yeah, I don't know, Left-Handed Jedi. If you have the biggest wooden boat the world has ever seen, like even in our day, like it's the biggest that has ever been produced, wooden floating structure that's ever been, which is also a zoo of thousands upon thousands of animals. And you have, between the boat, maintenance and all of the tasks, cooking, cleaning, and the zoo needing the animals to be fed, watered, taken care of, cleaned, mucked out. Between all of that and 8 people doing it, I don't think you've got much time for love in all of that. Maybe the animals would, but not the humans. You would be 24/7 working. It's ridiculous. Talking donkey, what is this, Shrek? Well, I mean, Don't these like young Earth Christians say that dragons were dinosaurs and they lived with you? So maybe the donkey did hook up with a dragon. I'm not sure. I'm not sure. Andreas from Sweden says, why didn't the ancient Egyptians note when they all drowned? I don't know. That's a question. And yes, the Chinese didn't note that they all drowned. And I mean, the apologetics behind this one is hilarious because they're like, oh, the Egyptians had flood myths and like stories about floods. And it's like, yeah, every year when the Nile flooded, like there was no, like we have a recording through the hieroglyphics, through the tablets, through the all of the Egyptian artifacts that we've seen of an unbroken record of kings and pharaohs going straight through that period without ever mentioning a worldwide flood. I mean, there is also civilizations like one in Japan where we have the civilization in Japan going through that time completely unbroken. It's very strange. There's civilizations all around the world that did not notice the global flood, which is kind of hilarious. And, it's not this apologetic of, yes, but all of them sort of had stories of floods. It's like, yeah, floods happen all over the place. But number one, they don't have a story about a global flood. And if they do, why did their civilization before that flood exist? Like, the flood stories aren't, oh, well, the civilization didn't exist and there wasn't. It's weird. It's very weird. Alan says, rainbows, dude. That's why there was a flood, so light could begin to refract through mist. Yeah, I have questions with that. That's one of the questions I've asked. And I don't know the answer to it because different Christians say, were there rainbows before the flood? Were there rainbows before the flood? If the rainbow is the sign of a covenant, and we'll get to that next chapter, because that is in the next chapter, you're sort of, spoiling it a little bit, Alan, but I get you, man. If the rainbow was a sign of the covenant, and the covenant was to not flood people, after God put it there, before the flood, did light just not refract into a rainbow? And I've heard both. I've heard no and I've heard yes, so who knows? The flood is quite probably a folk memory of the collapse of the ice sheets at the end of the last ice age. Possibly, yeah. Possibly, yes. That is probably true. Oh, hi, Ems. Hi, Ems. But it's really good to see you, Alan. And, yeah, I think Billy's right. But, it's hard to say. Because, we're not looking at it as in, oh, well, this is the time when it was, like, you've got to remember that there's flood stories that the biblical one was probably copied off the Epic of Gilgamesh, and before that the Atrahasis. Like they're probably, or is it the other way around? No, I think it's the other way around. I think it's the Atrahasis, and that was copied off the Epic of Gilgamesh. And so these flood stories, they're kind of being passed down from person to person to person to person, and it no longer resembles anything regarding something that actually happened. Oh, we got a lot of fine folks in chat. I love it. Gmerkin thought the story was a recast Utnapishtim mashed up with Plato's Atlantis story. Possibly. I don't know who Gmerkin is. Utnapishtim. Look, I'm probably saying that wrong. I know that Dr. Kip would probably, and rightfully so, slap me upside the head. But oh, he was the king. Got you. From the Epic Gilgamesh. Gotcha. Wow, the more you learn. Thank you for letting me know. So that's Russell Merkin. Okay, cool. Oh, look, this is sort of, a new subject to me, but I love that you're letting me know. I really do. That's awesome. So an independent researcher specializing in Greek. Cool. Greek sources used in the Hebrew Bible. Oh, cool. Okay. Yeah, I would like to know more about this, which is why I sort of, Yeah, no, that's cool. You are Victoria says that I'm sure there are a few nuclear texts that were snapped away that would lead to several nuclear meltdown. Right. Well, yeah, it depends. Depends on a lot. But yeah, you would imagine so. You would imagine so. Um, but like, how did it happen? Did he snap 50% of nuclear technicians away? And if so, did he snap 50% of the nuclear technicians who were on duty away? Like maybe they could just scram the reactor and like shut it down? Because they're like not all nuclear technicians on duty at every power plant were snapped away, only 50% of that. Like, was it 50% of humans at random, or were there demographics involved? These are the questions I have, right? These are the questions I have. Like, because if it was at random, if it happened that all of the Avengers were snapped away, like, you'd be boned, right? Like, but it seems only like 50%. So did he divide them into like professions and only like, but then again, if you've got 50% of pilots, like you've got some plane crashes and stuff, right? Or was it that between the pilot and the co-pilot, one of them was snapped away? You don't know, right? You don't know. Love the argument that God is outside our time and space. How did he know when and where to create the universe? Yeah, unclear. Unclear. Um, yeah, it's kind of weird. It's kind of that they try to argue that he's transcendent, and I kind of dislike that word because it sort of suggests there's some kind of spiritual realm that hasn't been established to be transcendent too, but he sort of says that he's transcendent. So he basically is like a person who's outside a pond that can put their hand in the pond at any point that they want, that they can just put it in there and then act upon that part. So that's their argument for it. I don't see any reason to believe that, but, you know, that's the apologetics for it. You know, I don't know how that points to where to create the universe. I presume that it doesn't matter, right? Like, it really doesn't matter. Because if you're thinking of something in an atemporal sense, like there is no time, where he starts it doesn't matter because there is no time, right? It's kind of hard to wrap your mind around, but if there is no time, he would just start it, or it would just start somewhere, and it doesn't matter when that is because there's no when, right? It just starts. So is that a problem? I don't know. I have no idea. It seems ridiculous, but, you know, but they don't think of time like that. They think of God as eternal, as in infinite time, when you know, no time should apply to it. So it all becomes very confusing, Jinx. It doesn't make much sense to me. Hello, Mark, and everyone from frigid Wisconsin. That's up north, isn't it? That's near Canada. Oh, you poor, poor, poor frozen bastard. Nah. I'm not sure I could do that. That sounds so cold. My guy, I get down to like 5 degrees Celsius and I am freezing. Like I am not built for the cold, my friend. I am not built for the cold. You know, give me 40 degrees over that. That's insane. I'm not one to argue with Russ Merkin. Yeah, okay. No, that's fair. I wouldn't argue with him either. No. Look, I would only argue with Kip over one thing, and that's that he's actually written a book. Okay, that's the only thing I would argue with Kip over. I acknowledge when people have way greater expertise in a field than I do. But as far as knowing who has actually written a book, apparently Dr. Kip has written no books. When you allow magic for an explanation for anything, you can believe anything. Yeah, and sort of, so it also does not restrict what is and what isn't. Like, you have no limitation when you have these unlimited explanations. You cannot actually focus on what is and isn't, because anything could be possible. And that's why it's really weird. The sort of the presup bros will kind of go, well, you believe in uniformity of nature and that needs God, and it's kind of like, no, God precludes uniform. So uniformity of nature is the idea that physics operates in the same way sort of universally. It will all happen, you know, if you have a result, that result will keep happening. So if I, you know, drop a pen, that result through the uniformity of nature will keep happening. But God precludes that because of miracles. So it is them that has the problem with understanding uniformity of nature. Because if you have miracles, there's no reason, like, what's to stop God from making the pen float upwards? Why do you keep relying on it to fall down? Plane crashes, unsnapped, appears at 30k feet with no plane and falls to death. Right, these are questions, right? Like, does he appear back in the cockpit? Does he appear where he was? You know, does the magic of the Infinity Stones put him on the ground? Like, what are we talking about here? Eric hanging out with us peasants. Yeah, I mean, come on. I'm just a random peasant. You're just a random peasant. Eric's the king. We all know it, except that, come on now. I like mingling with the mortals. Yep. Right on. Reed, good to see you. I think the flood was always going to happen and God just lied and went, oh, that was part of my plan all along because everyone is wicked, including the animals. That's the ticket. Yeah. Easy, Reed, easy. Never. You can't stop me. You can't stop me. Eric could never resist an arc-based hypothetical. Oh, look, some of the hypotheticals on the arc. I mean, the whole idea, and to me, the most unlikely part to me is that 8 people ran a wooden ship which would have to be leaky. Like, you cannot have a ship that size whose boards don't bend. Like, it cannot be possible that it wasn't taking on water. And that's fine. All you need to do is pump or bail the water out. But 8 people... I mean, we had sailing ships come across the Atlantic, and they needed to bail them, you know, because water got in on those things, and those weren't even slightly as large as this ark. And also to have the animals and have 8 people, like, the amount of labor is so far above what they could have done. It's just ridiculous. It's ridiculous. Some dude was trying to justify the flood. To me, something about free will, I couldn't make the connection. Yeah, Hillhugger, I don't know. There's no real free will in the flood story. I think there's maybe, well, people could have got aboard the ark, but they didn't. It's like, hang on a second, how? They could barely have, like, how could they feed everybody if they went, no, I want to be saved too? Were they going to build their own ark? Would they have time? There's questions there, right? Champagne sketch comedy. I know what show that was from, and you are a true connoisseur of Australian, you know, champagne sketch comedy. I loved that show. If you don't know, it was a show called The Late Show in Australia. No relation to David Letterman's Late Show or Stephen Colbert's Late Show. It was just called The Late Show in Australia, and it was like sketches, and some of them were absolutely gold. Absolutely fantastic. Fantastic. Muhammad punched the moon in... yeah, I'm a relatively new guy to this channel, but find the conversation. Oh, that's good. That's good. I appreciate it. I appreciate it. Muhammad punched the moon in half. It got better. Yeah, I have some wild people saying that the moon was split in half. The moon does not have a crack on it. It doesn't. The funniest one that I saw was when a lady was saying that the moon had a crack on it, and it turned out to be Charon, the moon around Pluto. She got the wrong picture, and that was hilarious, Billy. That was really, really funny. I actually laughed my ass off for that one. But yes, the whole idea that Muhammad went up and split the moon in half. And the weird thing was, the weirdest part about that story is that the people he did it for, because it wasn't just in a vacuum. If you're unaware of the story, it was basically these people coming to him and saying, we don't believe that you are a prophet. You're a fraud, right? This is how the story goes. To show them he is not a fraud, he splits the moon in half. And they go away saying that he used evil magic, but he's not a prophet. So they didn't believe him, right? So to me, it sounds like they came up to him, said he split the moon, like, you know, say that he's a fraud. He says, look, I split the moon in half and it's just a crescent. And they go away going, what an idiot. Like, what a fraud. That is the most likely explanation to me. And they write it down as, oh, they said it was evil magic, but they didn't believe he was the prophet. No, they probably just believed he was full of crap. Full of crap. Because that's what I would think if somebody did that. Hovland also claimed that stars forming is not science, but the Loch Ness Monster is. Yeah. If you're unfamiliar with Hovland, wow, that's the gift that keeps on giving. It was more a litter box of incest. Yeah, probably. Mark, was the platypus the result of backroom shenanigans aboard the Ark? No! Convergent evolution is the platypus. It is... the bill is not a duck's bill. It's not made of keratin. I did a thing about this on Fundamentalist Fails for the Hovand's child, the spawn of Hovand, recently, because he was sort of saying platypus is evidence of a creator god. It's really not. It is evidence of evolution all the way, baby. Skeptics and Scout Eric with $5 US. I appreciate it, my friend. That Venus probe lasts slightly longer than a Kent Hovand marriage. Oh boy. Yeah, and there's probably been more marriages than probes to Venus, I'll tell you that right now. What's he on, 5th, 6th now or something? It's really hilarious. And the funny thing is, all of his ex-wives say exactly the same thing. That he's manipulative, that he's nasty, that he's got this nasty side. And he just sort of says, oh, it's all their problem. You know, I think at that point, the problem may be with Hovand. I think at that point. But thank you so much, Eric. I really do appreciate it, mate. Hillhugger says, I've taken to calling it the Magic Zoo Poo Boat on Creationist page. Well, I first heard Magic Zoo Boat on Captive Desk, and that was hilarious, mate. Makes you want to write a song. Well, Dave on Captive Desk has a song for the Magic Zoo Boat already, I think. In Egypt, there were bad boys every year, the flood every year. The boat makers were really thankful, though. Yeah, didn't they make papyrus boats that floated really well because they're papyrus? Not sure. Why would they have a flood myth if they were supposed to have drowned? Didn't it say that the Egyptians and Chinese weren't wicked because they lived to have a myth about it? I don't know. I don't know. I think that the young Earth creationists just think that the Chinese and Egyptians were lying, or we're lying about their civilizations. I don't think so. I don't think that. No, their thing was that Noah was the only family to survive, which is inbred. Yeah. My mum said it didn't rain until the flood. What the hell? Really? No, that's not true. That can't be true, because one of the earlier passages said that God made the rain, because there was only, at one point, I can't remember which Genesis it was, but at one point in Genesis, there was only mist doing the rain, and then I think it's Genesis 2, and then he made it so it did rain. So that cannot be true. That cannot be true. Was it... Hang on a sec. Let me look real quick. Because I remember doing this. No planets sprout, for the Lord God had not sent the rain on the earth, and there was no one through it, but streams came up from the earth and watered the whole surface of the ground. Yeah, I mean, it's possible. It's possible that they say there weren't rain before the floods. It's possible. I don't know. It's kind of weird though. Joe, thank you so much for becoming a member. Winner chicken dinner. Thank you so much, buddy. I really appreciate it. Let me give you some chicken. There you go. A big Bigfoot Jesus to you. Said it didn't rain into the flood. That's possible, I guess. Everything about the flood makes you want to rewrite physics and multiply them. Absolutely, yes, yes. Everyone needs to hit the like button. It would be vastly appreciated. You don't have to. You don't need to, but it would be appreciated. Absolutely. Very important scholar, groundbreaking work. Yeah, cool. I like this. I love having people in chat because they get to tell me all of this stuff. It's cool. Well, yeah, have a good evening, Katie9. I'm not sure what your actual screen name is because YouTube hates you apparently, and everybody else, of course, because it won't let us have our screen names. Many reactors have built-in failsafes. Yeah, that's true. That's true. Russian reactors need to be cooled with vodka. Mm-hmm. Jesus is king of what? Of what? One of Wellhausen's strongest arguments for the documentary hypothesis was the Noah story being told twice and the Cain story not being aware of the Noah story. Well, Cain was before the Noah story in the Bible, at least. So, Noah story being told twice. Well, I mean, I'm not sure. Like, are you talking about different, like the different places that they drew the story from? Because of course there were different sources for the Old Testament, right? And they were compiled into one. So, yeah. No preaching in chat. Yes, yeah. Not like okay. So Alan, have conversations, but you may want to sort of say, hey, what do you think about Jesus being king, or do you believe that Jesus is king, or what? Why don't you think he's king? Instead of just preaching, because we like to have discussions here, not just people preaching. So if you're coming in to say, hey, this person is the best in the world, maybe have a discussion rather than just, telling people things. Yunashpin was the person on the boat in the Epic Gilgamesh. Right, and he was the king afterwards. Yeah, gotcha. But kings rule countries. I'm actually really disappointed with this winter. What, it's not wintry enough for you? What the hell, Eric? Most of the USA is frozen right now. Is it? Okay. Look, I gotta say, I am impressed because in Minneapolis and Minnesota kind of thing in general, it is so cold and people... I saw an interview with a guy in Minneapolis and they said, how long are you protesting for? And the guy literally said, until my balls freeze. And I just thought, that is awesome. Like, to come out in that weather and, make your voice heard... Awesome people. I am, look, just for the record, and I will talk more about it in my member stream tomorrow. You can get access to that if you're a member, but I am so impressed with the fortitude, the courage, the sheer immunity to freezing your ass off that the people in Minnesota are showing. It's actually really impressive. And, if your unruliness is impressing an Australian, you're doing it right, quite frankly. Of all the people who have written no books, Dr. Kip certainly is a people. He's written no books. Dr. Kip, the unauthor, yeah. We have an ice problem, one might say. Yeah, we need some de-icing. I getcha. We are bringing in this winter. Weather needs better in the future. Yeah, isn't it funny they told Team FEMA not to call them ice storms? Then what the hell are they calling them? Snowstorms? Solid water storms? What are they calling them? I don't... Billy says the magical thinking is what spawned 40,000 plus Christian denominations, not including all of the extinct sects. Yes, correct. Yes. I think that people's beliefs just have a tendency to fragment, and you've got to sort of find common ground again. It's just that if you believe the problem with the Christian sects and what causes them to split is thinking your beliefs are inerrant, right? When you start to think there is no possible way I can be wrong about these things, right? Like not well, I think I'm right, but if you provide me evidence, if you provide me some kind of methodology that works for determining it wrong, and you provide me with that information, I will change my mind. But but I think I'm right because of all of these reasons. That's one thing. When you're saying there is no possible way I can be wrong, that's when schisms really happen. Because all of those sects think that theirs is correct and no possible way it can be wrong. So there's no way to go, hey, here is a independent, objective way to show who's right and who's wrong. Magical thinking allows you not to have any rules governing anything. You can always miracle your way out of a problem. It's not an explanation. I agree with that, yes. It's not an explanation because it doesn't actually explain anything. You haven't been able to get to the grocery store in a week? Damn. Yeah, no, this whole snow thing, because I've never seen snow, okay? Like, real big information for some of you, other people will know. I live in a place that is really fucking hot, okay? Just really hot. And I have never seen snow because it does not reach the temperatures that snow needs to form. So the closest I've seen to snow is like frost on the ground in winter, sort of on grass kind of thing, a bit frosty. Hailstones I've seen. I've never actually seen snow. And I don't cope well with the cold. So I think I would not like it. We're below zero every night with 2 inches of solid ice on everything. Jeez, I thought Kentucky was like hot. Is it like hot at all? Go look in your mirror. I'm not sure why. I've got a cam up here and I can see myself on the cam. My head is very shiny, if that helps. Maybe I can use my head as a mirror. That would be cool. That would be cool, Goblin. But thank you. The real problem with the Ark is that Noah left his grandchildren behind, like Noah's kids left their children. Did he have grandchildren at that point? Is that the real problem with the Ark, that Noah left his grandchildren behind? Wasn't it? Like, he had his families. He had his children, like Ham and I can't remember the other two. Who was it? It was I've got it here. It was Ham. Was it Zachariah? Or it started with a J. I can't remember the name of it, but he had like 3 children with him, 3 sons with him, because the Old Testament only really concerned with sons and things relation to the sons. It really doesn't say, hey, he had a daughter or something. I have seen moons with a crack on them. Yes, but not our moon. Not the moon that Muhammad split in half. Like, because at the time, they didn't know that other planets were really a thing, much less they had moons around them. They really didn't know. That's kind of sad. Yeah. The moon is a spaceship if you cannot split it in half. Okay, that's a very liberal use of the word spaceship, but sure. I mean, if you're talking sort of metaphorically, like spaceship Earth, sure. I'm not sure I would define it as that. An otter, a duck, and a beaver walk into a bar. Yes. 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 I'm not sure that genetics works like that, but yeah, they had an orgy and made a platypus. Don't forget the venom. Platypuses have venom. Yeah, and apparently, I didn't know this, apparently it is excruciating. I had a question. Someone in the comments sort of said, venom in platypus. I'm like, has anyone ever been stung by a platypus? Has that ever happened? Apparently someone has, and they describe it as absolutely excruciating. So yes, but it's only the males, and it's actually delivered via a venomous spur behind their their hind leg. So it's a really weird way, So Hovind, the child spawn of Hovind who's sitting there going, oh, it's like a snake. No, it's not like a snake. The venom is completely different than a snake's. It's got proteins that aren't found in reptiles in it, and it's not delivered like a snake. So stop saying a platypus is like a snake. Please. Please. Venomous ample spines. Yeah, yeah. Stephen tries to get you to go. He doesn't really support Kent Hovind, does he? Still, after all that guy did to him and his absolutely shocking documentary and everything that happened. Eric says, I heard that once the firmament was holding all the water and it didn't rain until it broke. Oh, okay. That's interesting. That's weird. That's very strange. That's very strange. What did they drink? What did the animals drink? I don't understand. That's weird. I was taught the rain thing growing up. What's SDA? I don't know what SDA is. Seventh-day Adventist. I got it. Kent is worth about 4 mil. I wonder if I could put up with him for whatever years or so he has left. Look, I don't think he has that money. I think that he's squirreled it away in his... basically, he does, but he's squirreled it away in his ministry, in my opinion. That's what I think. It's just an opinion. I don't know that for sure, but that's what I think he's done so he doesn't have to pay tax on it. He's put it in the ministry. Ministry is religious. Religions don't pay tax, etc., etc., etc. And, you know, as far as I know, he looks kind of... He seems kind of miserly. Oh, it's P-Town. Hey, P-Town. Welcome back. Hey, P-Town. 50k protesting and negative 20 wind chill. Yeah, no, I think those people who are like, oh, they were paid to do it. No, you can't pay people to go out and negative 20 wind chill and stand in it. It's the ice is bad. Ooh, the ice is bad. I agree with that. Divine hiddenness allows each believer to design their God uniquely according to their own moral framework, which is based upon their own experiences. When a few agree, they call it a denomination. Well, yeah, kind of. I think it's more top-down rather than bottom-up. Like what you're describing is bottom-up. Each person comes up with their own system, and then that gets combined into one sort of working system. I think religion is more top-down than that, Joe. I think it's more that sort of, you know, what people have as their God is indoctrinated into people as their God, and then it starts splintering away. I think it's more top-down than bottom-up. But, you know, hey, I'm sure some of that is happening. I really am sure some of that is happening. For more than 6 months of the year, there's snow for you? Dang. Dang. I'm sorry. I'm sorry. Hey, Bree. Kentucky gets both extremes. Okay, above 100 in summer and below 0 in winter. Oh, that sucks. God hates Kentucky, apparently. You heard it here first. Planets, you know, they're actually angels. Okay, I believe you. Liberal immigrant storms, like Gulf of America. ICE was giving ice storms a bad name. Had to be renamed. Totally normal. Yeah, yep. It was Coyote Peterson. Don't believe him about that pain. If it was Coyote Peterson. No, I don't think so. I think it was a woman working rescue, like animal rescue in Australia, that picked up a platypus to save it, and she was stung. So it wasn't a guy at all. No, and it certainly wasn't someone called Coyote Peterson. It was a woman. You know, and I wouldn't expect somebody working in platypus rescue to lie about it. Actually, it would be a moon as opposed to the moon, would it not? Yeah, but if Muhammad split the moon of Pluto, I don't know why he would be pointing it out to people on Earth, expecting them to see it. That makes no sense. No, he was definitely pointing at our moon. But is the raven like the writing desk? Yes, it is. And the answer is they were both written on by Poe. There you go. That's no moon. That's a space station. Zambonis are excellent in handling ice. Well, that's true. That's true. I agree with you as far as the existence of denominations, but people either join because they agree or adjust to be in agreement. Yeah. I think that denominations largely get their members from sort of people in the denominations, though. I get what you mean. I think there's sort of a back and forth flow. I think it's very, very. I think it's both ways. You're probably right, Joe. I think I can agree with that. Billy says Zamboni. I do not know what it means. It's very fun. So Zamboni is a machine, like it's like a Hoover, right? If you are from Australia, you have a Hoover. It's a vacuum cleaner. It's a form of ice smoother, right? It'll drive round ice and sort of smooth it out on the ice rink or whatever, right? So I know Australia, not that much ice rinks. Okay, ice rinks very rare in Australia. I know because my state has one, I think. Maybe two, but one, I think. But like the machine that goes and smooths the ice from all the gouges in it is a Zamboni. And don't ask me how I know that. I don't know how I know. I'm caught up. What are you talking about, Robin? Stop adding me. God is the arsehole by 69%. Perfect. You've done the right thing here, chat. You've done the right thing. I approve of this. This is the perfect number. I don't care which answer you voted for, but the fact that you got it on 69, well done. Kudos, chat. You're doing it right. You're doing it right. You're absolutely doing it right. Okay, and the second one is Genesis 8. And a super chat from Better Than Amber. Member for 30 months. Message if you want to join a cult with emojis. Jesus, Bigfoot Jesus. Absolutely. Thank you so much, Ember. And 30 months. What are you doing? That's crazy and absolutely impressive. Thank you so much, Ember. You are a delight and apparently a flower. I love it. So, am I the arsehole? I am Yahweh with yet another post. Hang on, sorry a second. I'll just zoom out a bit so you can see it. There we go. That's way better. Am I the arsehole for making everyone wait months on a boat after a flood instead of ending it immediately? Probably. I mean, yeah. So long story short, male, infinity. I missed a super and a new member. Did I? When? Are you lying? No, I said welcome to Joe, and I did the Eric super chat. No, Robin, you're a liar. You're just a liar. You're a liar. I did them. I 100% did them. I think. Look, no, Mark. Is there one that came that I didn't see in this program or something? What? Give me a second. I'll get into my thing. You're really making me worry. I thought I did them. Am I going cray-cray? Am I losing my mind like more than usual? I mean, is that something that's happening? I don't think so. Supers. Skeptics and Scoundrels. Yeah. Yeah, there was only one super chat in this stream. I'm very confused. You missed. Okay. All right. We're fine. Robin's just making me freak out. That's usual. Made a flood that completely covered the earth and killed everything not aboard the ark. I'd gotten this one guy to make for his family and enough animals to repopulate the earth. From the outside, it probably looked like survival should have meant immediate relief, but I'd created a lot of water and it just didn't go away instantly. Yeah, yeah. Yeah, you did kill everything on the Ark, and you had gotten this one guy to make for his family a big boat and enough animals to repopulate. Why didn't the water go away immediately? Who knows? Who knows? Yeah, so the flood happened, and the boat was on Mount Ararat, but the waters just didn't go away. It took a long ass time. I caused the waters to begin receding, but it was taking a long time. The rain stopped, the underground waters no longer gushed, and the water level slowly dropped over time. The Ark eventually came to rest on the mountains of Ararat, but even then the earth wasn't ready yet, and the rest of the earth had to dry out. Yeah. So why couldn't the god, like, make it nice and sunny and dry it out almost instantly? Who knows? Who knows? No idea. The guy Noah kept sending out birds to check if there was enough land. I think they were not enjoying the extended cruise I had made them go on, and seemed very impatient to get off the boat. Yeah, you think like cooped up in a boat with thousands of animals is just going to be a cruise. A couple's cruise, just so romantic, scrubbing the decks, bailing out water, carrying dung off the boat. Oh, it's a holiday if ever I've heard one. First couple of tries were with a raven, but it did not succeed. Eventually, after switching to doves, one of them came back with an olive leaf. It was weird that an olive tree survived the flood, but that isn't important to the story. Yeah, how did the olive tree survive, exactly? That's my question. How is it that there's a fully grown olive tree after these waters? Can olive trees live underwater now? Is this a thing that I'm unaware of? How did the olive tree survive? Or was it just some random olive leaf? I don't know. All right, Billy. Oh, that's awesome. Yeah, no, I'm always in favor of D&D, my friend. You go. Put your chainmail on, chainmail bikini it up. Take your great sword, and dungeon delve your heart away. All good, my friend. All good. It was weird that the olive tree survived the flood. Yeah, it's kind of weird. Hillhugger member for 32 months, Hillhugger. You are awesome. The mud problem has entered the chat. Yeah. So the mud problem, yes. If the water was covering all of the earth and you're waiting for it to dry out, how the hell did it get an olive leaf? And don't forget, the olive tree was underwater for a year. There is definitely well, tell me the mud problem. I'm kind of unfamiliar with that. What's the mud problem? Gotta put my Noah to bed. Oh, all good, man. All good. Yeah. I'd love to talk, man. I would absolutely love to talk, Joe. It's fantastic to see you, my friend. Really good to see you. Olive trees are notorious for dying if they have wet feet or poor drainage. Yeah, I thought so. Yeah, because they evolved in arid climates, right? Like the near Middle East, right? So around that area there was olive trees, and it's an arid area. So olive trees do really well in arid environments. Like, I don't understand how an olive tree, of all things, like, you might say, hey, a mangrove survived, right? Like, that might be an argument, okay? Because mangroves famously love very water-laden environments. Like, mangrove swamps is where they grow. But a olive tree, no. I refuse to believe that an olive tree can survive underwater for a year. I don't believe it. I don't believe it. And I don't believe that, many areas on Earth would not have the ability to have the forms they have today if the flood happened, because the mud would still not have dried out. Oh, interesting. I haven't heard of that one. I mean, it makes sense, right? Like, there's places in the world that have been flooded that don't dry because the water sits upon some kind of non-porous rock, and so it doesn't really go away. Interesting. It was weird but that isn't important. Eventually, when the bird didn't return, Noah knew there was land. Yeah, so the bird came back with an olive leaf, and he knew that, hey, there were plants out there, but it still wasn't safe enough to go out. And then the bird didn't come back, so he knew that there was land. What if the bird had had a heart attack? Like, what if the bird had a sudden onset heart attack halfway through because you keep sending it out flying, and it just died halfway through? What then? What then? Eventually, when the ground was fully dry, I told Noah it was time to leave the ark. So, okay, so this makes no sense to me. Okay, so if you're sending out birds to see if it was okay, why does God have to tell you? Like, he goes, oh yeah, I told Noah it was time to leave the ark. What is this? Genesis 8? 8? 8? 8. Okay, so he tells him it's time to leave the ark. Why send the bird out then? Right? Why send it out? Like, because in and I'll just get the passage up. In 12, he waited 7 more days and sent the dove out again, but this time it did not return to him. Right? Like, so he's sending the bird out to check when it's fine. And that was in verse 12. But in verse 15, oh, hold on, I'll just share it. So in verse 12, he's saying, you know, the bird didn't return to him, kind of thing. And then God said to Noah, come out of your ark, you and your wife and your son and your wife. Why send the bird out? Why send the bird out? Was he just trolling the bird? I don't understand. Like, why is he checking to see where it was safe to come out if God is just going to tell him when it's safe to come out anyway? I do not understand that. That is just trolling, in my opinion. He, his family, and all the animals went out onto dry land. Okay. Apparently the mud dries really fast in this part of the world. Who knew? The first thing Noah did was build an altar and offer sacrifices. And that is the reason for the clean animals. Remember, he had 7 pairs of clean animals? That's the reason why. Because he sacrificed immediately upon getting out of the ark. And if there was only a pair, that would have been a problem. I mean, the inbreeding would have been a problem to begin with. You know, but that definitely would have been a problem if he sacrificed, you know, the only pair of cats or whatever. You know, that would have been a problem. I thought that maybe he should find fresh water and shelter first, but I really did appreciate the sentiment. It smelt really good when he burnt his offering after all of this humidity in the air. Of course, of course. Because the smell is what you really want out of a burnt offering. You know, it smells good. Smells good. So because I was pleased with Noah, I made an agreement that I wouldn't curse the ground because of humans, nor would I destroy all living creatures as I had done. Well, when they say as I had done, you're going to destroy them in quite other ways. Other ways we're going to destroy them. Just not this way, which is kind of... I feel like that's a bit of a troll. You know, when you say, hey, Noah, I won't destroy humans as I have done. And then go, well, surprise, I'll do it with fire instead of water. I feel like that's not much of a concession there. I feel like that isn't very, you know, that isn't very... I feel like it's a bit scummy, you know. I feel like that's a bit of a troll. I feel like this was the right thing to do after all that Noah had gone through a lot, and I feel after all that Noah had gone through, and I feel that he was due a reward. Sorry, I did not write that very well. I am writing these, so look, this is 100% my fault if the syntax is wrong. I always make fun of Reddit posts that I can't read because they're written poorly, and here I am doing the same myself. So, yeah. Wow. Joke's on me. And the thing about the rainbow, he also put a rainbow in the sky, and, like, it's kind of very strange that it's a rainbow. It doesn't, we know why a rainbow forms, and it's not because God had a covenant. It's because light going through water and water droplets, it gets split into its constituent colors. It's refraction. It's not supernatural. It's not mystical. It's just physics. It's not a problem. But it's a good story. A lot of my followers have been asking why I let Noah and his family float around for ages instead of rescuing them in a more efficient manner. I told them that drying out the earth is a long and tedious progress, and I am not the god of blow dryers. They don't seem to accept that answer and called me a complete douche. Am I the douche here? So yes, as always, we will have the poll. If you want to vote, is God a arsehole for letting them sit for months on end? Is God the arsehole for letting Noah and family wait ages to get off the boat? Which is probably pretty full of manure at this point, and other bodily substances, I would imagine. I can't imagine it was too nice on the boat. Thousands of animals, 8 people to take care of them. That's not going to end well. That is not going to end well. I'll tell you that right now. That is a recipe for disaster. And yeah. But we have some options. So there we go. There we go. Is he the douche? And while I'm waiting for people to vote, I will go through the comments as I do. So hold on. Yeah. Oh, Kelly's in the house. Oh, hello, Kelly. Good to see you. You're up north as well. It must be cold AF up there as well. I know that Kelly's from near Canada. Maybe the Harold Holt Aquatic Centre has an ice rink. Oh, Billy, I know you're Australian now. You've given the game away, mate. You've absolutely given the game away. I know you're Australian. So this is, if you're unfamiliar with the Harold Holt Aquatic Centre, Harold Holt, it's a monument. It's in memoriam to one of our prime ministers who died before his time. So he basically died when he loved swimming, so we named an aquatic centre. He actually vanished off the coast and presumed to drown. So in typical Australian fashion, being absolute larrikins that we are, we decided to name an aquatic centre after him because that's Australian as hell. That is actually funny. Harold Holt, you probably won't be missed. Hi, I'm in down under and up over. Cool. Hey, everyone's down under because there is no down on the earth. The down is towards the center of the earth. Everyone's down under. Everybody is. It's such a sort of northern hemisphere centric idea that Australia is down. I think it's wrong. I'm pushing back on it right now. Alan says, lungs on the ark wouldn't survive the ammonia from the urine for more for a day, much less weeks. Look, I don't, I have a lot of concerns. We can point out, yeah, the ammonia from the urine, absolutely. You have the sheer amount of feces that amount of animals would produce is unconscionable, like just ridiculous. Disease would be one of the biggest problems of that ship. You have mold gathering. If you have a wooden boat and it is that, water is everywhere, which obviously it is, it would get moldy. Like, we don't have the modern treatments for wood that this guy is using. All kinds of insects and things like sheep need to be docked and things or else they get fly blown. Like, if you have that amount of feces lying around, it is a disaster. Like, it is, the whole idea of it is impractical, B, unbelievable, as in I don't believe it, and C, disgusting. Just disgusting. Olive tree, a little known fact, olive trees are amphibious apparently. Yes, I did not know this. I thought that an olive tree being submerged for a year would kill it, but apparently according to the Bible, no. No, the olive trees are fine. The mud problem we kind of went over, but I'll sort of talk more on it. The olive tree was pickled? It was in a jar? Dang. Yeah, so many had not have the form today if the flood happened because the mud would still not have dried out. Right, so you've got porous rock that keeps water on top of it. If the flood happened and made everything into mud, we would not have the sort of, sedimentary rock on top of the non-porous rock that we would have today. Absolutely. And there's also some of my favorite things, Alan, is things like the Green River Formation. Basically, it is varves are what they're called. They're basically where the tide goes in and out, and it creates this sort of layer, this very distinctive pattern on the mud and rock. And we see these varves form over time, like 2 every day, and we have like hundreds of thousands of years of them, like millions of years in case of the Green River Formation. Like, it actually shows that this has been happening for a long time without interruption from a flood, obviously. That one is like, there's no water anymore, so it is one that is not still actively making varves. But there is lakes in Japan where they are actively making varves. I can't remember. Lake Sugar, I can't remember the name of it. I wish I could. But there is lakes in Japan where they're still currently forming. Lake Suigetsu, 70,000 year unbroken sequence of annual sediment layers in varves. So 70,000 years on those, which is cool. It's really cool. The lakes in Japan are really awesome. So, we've got all of this geological history. Yeah. Mud problem is you can't throw out thousands of feet of mud and then lithify it. That would take tens of thousands of years, if not longer. Yep. Fantastic. Thanks, Hillhugger. Gotcha. Yes. That and the salt water would kill it. Yeah. Stop stupidity. Absolutely. You're talking about the olive tree. Yeah. But the apologetic they use is that the water wasn't salty, it was fresh water, right? So when the fountains of the deep opened, it caused fresh water to go in. So Noah didn't have to take fresh water. He could just, drop a bucket and drink it out of the thing. Basically, it turned the salt water into fresh water. But that creates another problem, which is, how did the saltwater fish survive? If their environment, if the saltwater's fish environment suddenly turned fresh, that they would just die. They cannot live in fresh water. You can't do that with fish. You can't just take a saltwater fish, put it in fresh water and expect it to survive, or vice versa. Their anatomy is designed for that environment, or, evolved to that environment rather. So, that provides another problem. And this is the problem with young Earth apologetics. It feels like a boy putting their finger in a dam, and every hole they plug up, another one springs out somewhere else. So they get around the salty water by saying it was fresh because the fountains of the deep and the rain made it fresh, but that provides another problem, that saltwater fish would not survive. So there's problems there still. And why is it when the water receded, the oceans were salty? Shouldn't it be fresh? There's tons of problems there. And we've got JD Justice, welcome. Why do people still read up on the Old Testament, the old revelation of Jesus, until he came down the flesh and rewrote a new revelation for all of us? Okay, so the reason why we read it is because, number one, it's interesting to see what people in that time, their mythology on how the world was created and their explanations for the world, basically. Number two, it's because people in our society, not a huge amount of them, but a small portion of them, are claiming that these events actually happened, that this is the is history rather than mythology, that this is how the world came about. So we read up on it to see whether it actually holds any weight of being an explanation of how the world formed. Spoiler, it doesn't. Really, really doesn't. And three is because it's kind of funny. It like, I've always liked mythology, whether that be Greek mythology, Norse mythology, Chinese mythology. I've always liked mythology, so I find it really interesting. It's these explanations of things that they come up with that really interest me, and it's interesting how they think. But I don't think it's real, but it is kind of fun to go through, and I enjoy hanging out with all the people here. So, yeah, and it's because we're being presented with this as being actual things that happened in history, regardless of the evidence against them. And that's the problem. So much of the rhetoric in the modern era sounds like Marcion of Sinope. I don't know who that is. Who is that? Alan, you're really educating me today, mate. I gotta say, I gotta say, yeah, and JD Justice, I would argue that the Old Testament doesn't mention Jesus at all. It doesn't mention the Jesus of Nazareth character at all. Now, there's some allusions, there's some apologetics you can do to sort of say, hey, this was supposed to be Jesus, or this is a metaphor for him, or this alludes to this. It certainly doesn't clearly state, it states the Messiah. It doesn't state Jesus specifically. So I would sort of push back on the idea that it is I don't think any biblical scholars would say that the Old Testament is a revelation of Jesus. I think that is more a apologetics thing rather than an actual biblical scholarly thing. Marcion, or I'm probably saying that wrong. Marcion of Sinope. Early Christianity, about 85 AD. Okay. So roughly around when the first Gospels were produced. Consider himself a follower of Paul the Apostle, whom he believed to be the only true apostle of Jesus Christ. Okay, interesting. Wait, Paul was the only true apostle? What? Paul didn't even meet Jesus when he was alive, or in the flesh, or, not a light. That doesn't make any... Oh, he said, was distinct from the vengeful demiurge. Okay, gotcha. Oh, wow. Okay, yeah. That explains a lot. Hey, that's interesting. Thank you so much, Alan. I really appreciate it, mate. I still want to know where they got the fresh water. So that's the apologetic. That's the apologetic STS. That if the water was fresh, like all of the rain came down, obviously it's fresh water. The fountains of the deep was fresh water. They weren't floating around on a salt sea. They were floating around on fresh water, which, if you know anything about water, saltiness makes it easy to float, so I'm not sure how that would affect it. Who knows? Who knows? God needed that sweet burning flesh smell, so God has a nose. Look, I'm not going to comment on the anatomy. Well, presumably he does, because if God made us in his image, then presumably God has a nose. The question is, does God have a penis? That's what my question is. And if so, why? Does God have a dick? That's what I'm asking today. That's the question for today. I'm not going to do a poll on it, but definitely the question for today. JD Justice says, I don't understand why other texts were taken out. Enoch was Noah's great-grandfather. It's a really insane read, but makes other parts of the Bible make sense. Well, I mean, there was the sort of, Council of Nicaea and another few sort of people meeting up and deciding what was in the Bible and what wasn't. Enoch is one of the books of the Bible. I'm not sure how it changed from what you're talking about. But yeah, no, they decided what was in it and what wasn't. Who knew? Hello, Jess. So good to see you. I really want to catch up with you soon, Jess. I really want to catch up with you. We'll catch up soon. 3 degrees Fahrenheit? Dang. Yeah. Alan says, where did he put the termite mounds? Oh, absolutely. Termites are a problem. Ants are a problem. Bees are a problem. I bring up bees, right? Because bees are unique. Well, not unique, but they are sort of they're interesting because they get nectar from flowers, okay? And that is why they cross-pollinate a lot of plant species, a lot of flowers, right? And why we need bees to be doing okay. Because no bees, no pollination to certain plants, no certain plants eventually know us, right? So that's why we need bees. But how did bees survive for a year, not like with flowers underwater? Even if the bees could fly forever, okay, and even if they somehow made floating hives, okay, unlikely and seeming a bit ridiculous, how did they get enough nectar so the hive would survive, so the queen would survive? And the only answer I've got was from Hovind, and it's ridiculous. He said that there were massive islands of floating plants where bees could have flowers, like flowers grew on them. Now, call me a skeptic, but if you had massive islands of floating plants and with enough flowers so bees could live on them, why the ark? Why bother have a boat? Why not just have a floating island for Noah and his family? Build a cabin on it. Like, what? I do not understand how there's floating islands and you're just like, yeah, bees have enough flowers on them to keep the hives going. Presumably there's multiple of them. Who knows? It's weird. But yes, termite mounds are another one. And I'd imagine they'd solve it with the same problem, that insects, because the only things on the ark were things with the breath of life, i.e. things that respirated, like we do. They basically had to get the insects some other way. So presumably termites wouldn't have been aboard the ark. At least I hope not, because that's a very short-lived ark. Greatest cult ever. It says fallacious, magical thinking equal religion, local rational thinking equal skepticism. Yes, and I will note as well, one of the things I have noticed in my journey into this sort of, space on YouTube is wishful thinking is religion as well. And by wishful thinking, I mean people that go, oh, this is I don't like the consequences of this thing, so it can't be true. And I was talking about this the other day when I was doing a debate on morality. Like, a lot of people will say, well, if morality is subjective, then there's no real way you can tell somebody something is objectively wrong. And that is wishful thinking. So it's not just religious people. We all kind of have a tendency to do it, right? Like, we all have this tendency for wishful thinking, which, if you study logic, it's called an appeal to consequence. You're basically saying, I don't like the consequences for this thing being true or not being true, so therefore it is not true, or it is true. I'll give you an example. Like, my wife can't possibly be cheating on me because that would ruin our lives, right? Like, whether or not that is happening, like, you're appealing to the consequence for it to be true or not to be true. And that isn't really logical. What you would have to do is say, what is the evidence for this? And is it rationally justified to do so, not look at the consequences? And this is a problem with humans. It's just that if you can't get a hold of critical thinking, you will go down this path. And Christians do it a lot, unfortunately. They would say, but if this is the case, then I don't like the consequences, therefore it can't be the case. Trump can't be a fascist, because if he was a fascist, I would have been supporting a horrible person. So therefore, he's not. What he is or is not has nothing to do with what you want it to be. Anyone know what it means when an Aussie says to do the Harold Holt? To do the Harold Holt. Nope, I don't know that one. Maybe I've failed my Australian test. Maybe I need to be kicked out. But I don't know that one, Hillhugger. Let me know. Let me know. Hello, AJ. So good to see you. So good to see you. One by Land says it's not clear why the water didn't fall off the edge of the earth like the Bible suggests it would. Look, it can be interpreted to be flat. I think that the whole Bible says flat earth is really up in the air. I don't know. It could be interpreted. Definitely says there's four corners to the earth. Definitely says the earth is laid out like a tablecloth. Whether or not that means a flat earth, I don't know. I don't know. But it is wild that people do believe that. Theoretically, hey Theo, it would be an arse for flooding the planet in the first place, I'd say. No, absolutely. Absolutely. Yes. Yes. I find, even if you had to eliminate a bunch of living creatures, I feel that there's way more humane ways to do it than drowning. As somebody who's almost drowned, it is pretty horrible. Absolutely horrible. Obviously I haven't drowned, but yeah, the panic is actually pretty bad. He was the Christian that thought the Old Testament showed an evil God. Right. Right. Yeah, that's wild, right? That's wild. Because you're basically basing your religion on the Jewish religion or the Israelite religion, and then you're sort of saying, yeah, but that was an evil God leading them astray. Wild. Yahooligan says, for I tell you, until heaven and earth disappear, not the smallest letter, not the least stroke of a pen will by any means disappear from the law until everything is accomplished. Yes. Yes, and that can be translated into jot or tittle as well. So yeah, and that's one of the arguments. It was really interesting, actually. I've got to post. I have a room rumble that I can post. I've just gotten permission from the channel owner to post it. I run into my friend Dustin, and if you haven't seen Dustin, Dustin is angry. He's angry, but it is an interesting watch. And it was interesting. I was asking this guy, this Eastern Orthodox guy, what fulfilled means to him, because he said, well, Jesus came to fulfill the law. And he fulfilled it. And it's like, but what does that mean to you? Because fulfill usually means to carry out. It usually means to follow through with, to do something, to implement something means to fulfill it, to carry it out. So when you're saying fulfill the law, meaning he changed it, that's a different definition. So what do you mean by fulfill? Because that isn't really, like, to fulfill my function isn't to change my function, or to fulfill my promise isn't to change my promise. It's to carry it out, to implement, to actually do it. So yeah, that's an interesting, and I promise I'll upload that as soon as possible. Yeah, and to try and 15 minutes from the tunnel, which connects us to Windsor, Ontario. Okay, so when you have to flee the country, you won't have to go far. Awesome, Kelly. I feel a lot happier knowing that you're like stone's throw from safety. The book of Enoch goes into detail about the cosmos, fallen angels, the time when the Son of Man would fall apart. I would challenge anyone to read other texts the Vatican banned. Okay, I mean, it sounds cool. It sounds interesting. Even if I don't believe that it's true, I always like this kind of stuff. Oh, it's an ancient Jewish apocalyptic religious text. Oh. I thought Enoch was in the Bible as well. Am I going crazy? So, oh. Is Enoch one of the... Oops. No, it's not included. Okay, it was excluded from the canon. It was not accepted into the Hebrew, the Tanakh, or the Protestant Catholic Old Testament canons. Interesting. It is considered scripture, and this is just AI. So do tell me if I get anything wrong in this, because I take this with a grain of salt because it is the AI overview kind of thing. It's considered scripture by the Ethiopian Orthodox Tewahedo Church. Oh, okay. So it's dated to 300 to 100 BCE, rather than being authored by the biblical Enoch from Genesis. The New Testament book of Jude quotes a passage from 1st Enoch. Okay. Oh, it was found among the Dead Sea Scrolls. Oh, interesting. Interesting. All right, I'm going to have to read that then. Thank you. Much appreciated. One by land, two by sea. Also not clear where the water went or came from, being a water cycle. Yeah, that's a bit of a weird one. I mean, it says that they subsided. Did they go back into the fountains of the deep? Where did the rain go? Did that go in there? Because it rained for 40 days and 40 nights. Was that added to the water table? I don't know. It's all very unclear. The apologetics of young Earth creationists, they generally point at water being locked within I knew I'd forget the name of the rock. There's a rock which holds a lot of water, but it's not exactly water in the rock. The thing is that they've sort of jumped on this, but to get it into a liquid water state, it's not in a liquid water state, so it kind of falls down where that's concerned. It is a good question. There are some very weird people that think that there's water beneath the earth, like liquid water beneath the earth, alongside the lava and, stuff like that. Magma, I should say. Lava's when it's above the earth. My geologist friends will kill me if I make the wrong statement about magma and lava. So magma is a liquid volcanic or semi-liquid volcanic rock when it's under the earth. Lava is when it is above the earth. I've got PTSD from experts absolutely like waterboarding me over using wrong terms. Where the water went, who knows? Who knows? Is it olivenite? Olivenite? Laden rock underground. There's an olivenite underground that's supposed to have a lot of water, but it's not liquid water. So it's sort of deep water. Yeah, ringwoodite. That's right. Ringwoodite is supposed to have like sort of a lot of water in it, but it's not liquid water. So the process of having it changed from sort of liquid water, trapped water, is a bit of a problem. Does God have nipples? I would imagine that's a good question. It's sort of right up there. Actually, Lynch, good to see you. Welcome, welcome. It's right up there with the question, does Adam have a belly button? Right? Did Adam and Eve have belly buttons? Because the reason why the belly button is there is that's where the umbilical cord is connected, right? So if they were created, why would they have a belly button? Because that's evidence of your umbilical cord, and presumably Adam and Eve did not have umbilical cords. They were created, so presumably they just had a flat stomach, which quite frankly would look a bit weird, to be honest with you. Am I wrong, but when they're termites? Am I wrong, but when they're termites? I don't think you're wrong. I think termites are definitely a problem. Ants are a problem. Most insects are a problem because they were never aboard the ark, so them surviving is a problem. There's the problem of mosquitoes, for instance. How did mosquitoes survive? They need to, drink animal blood to survive. So how did mosquitoes survive? The answer I've heard is, they were aboard the ark. So not only the ark was a urine-filled, feces-filled, disgusting wooden boat, leaky boat, it also had mosquitoes. That must have been a great ride for the humans. God isn't human equals no penis. Have you checked? Have you checked? I don't know how you check. But he's not human, so no penis. So he's not a man, is what I'm hearing. Because from what I've heard from religious people is that only men have penises. So we're saying God's not a man. Gotcha. Where there, not when. Where there, not when. Where there? Am I wrong? But were there termites? Were there termites? I have no idea. An island on Mount Ararat would be too obvious. Yeah, you'd think we'd be able to find a mountain with an island on the top. But apparently, Ron Wyatt has found the Ark. Well, both Arks, the Ark of the Covenant and Noah's Ark as well. Come on, Tafreak, you know there's no preaching, man. Like, put a conversation, put a question in there, make a statement and ask for people. Like, have a conversation, don't just do Bible verses. You know the rules, my friend. No preaching. I will bonk. I will utterly consume all things from the land, saith the Lord. He hasn't yet scraped us. Okay, that's a weird thing to say. Okay, maybe that's your sort of statement that you're talking about. I will consume all things from off the land. Okay, great. Well, I mean, the flood did supposedly consume all things, but I don't... Well, all things with the breath of life. I don't know what else you want me to say. What kind of God kills every single animal on Earth, save 2 of each, just to kill one species, the humans? Yeah, it sounds like there's way better ways he could have done this. Like, way better ways he could have done this. If you are an omnipotent, omniscient God, doing it in this manner, like the Thanos snap seems like so much a better idea. Like, why do it this way is beyond me. Imagine being obsessed with a comic book. A lot of people are obsessed with comic books. Comic books are doing very well. Like, you know, have you seen the Marvel franchise recently? Holy crap. It's doing gangbusters. Gangbusters. He acts like a dick. Oh, yeah, the Old Testament God. Yeah, no, we haven't even gotten to the truly dickish parts of the Old Testament God. You wait until Egypt. That gets absolutely rotten to the core. It gets absolutely reprehensible. It is as Christopher Hitchens used to say, the God of the Old Testament is one of the most what did he say? It was one of the most unpleasant characters in all of fiction. And I agree. He is like the Greek gods, who were also complete dicks. They don't even come close to how he acts. Motive is a factor in things, so there are exceptions. Okay, yes, motives is a factor in things, but if you're omnipotent, the means should not be a problem. Should not be a problem. And if the means are inherently bad, like for instance, if you're omnipotent, you're capable of anything, and the means have suffering in them, then you intended that to happen, the suffering to happen, because you have the means to do it any way you want. So omnipotence just basically is that, yeah, it's not the ends that it shows what you're trying to do. The means is also what you're trying to do, because you can literally do anything. Hillhugger, speaking of bees and flowers, I like how all the flowering plants grew legs and moved to higher ground. Then after the flood, all the gum trees hopped it to Australia. Yeah, that's a problem. Not only because of the koalas getting to the ark and, you know, eucalyptus leaves, and then getting back from Mount Ararat to Australia with no gum trees, strangely enough, and biodiversity of plants. Why did they all just survive where they were? Who knows? It's also that, like, eucalyptus trees only exist in Australia, have only ever existed in Australia. They do not exist anywhere else. And it's a problem for the young Earth creationists. The Quran. I'm sorry, this is not a Quran stream. Devils have brought revelation. We have never been unjust. Okay, says you. To bolt is to do the Harold Holt. To bolt? Do they think he ran away? I have heard that one, that it was a conspiracy for him to run because he wasn't very popular. But I usually I just think that people say, hey, he died. I've also heard a conspiracy that he was taken out by the CIA. Okay. Look, the dude likes swimming in storms. Like, you know, if you like swimming in storms and you go out into a storm to swim and you vanish, I think there's a likely explanation behind that one. JD Justice, if Jesus isn't real, so be it. I'd take a chance on it just as much as a Big Bang Theory, whether it's proven or not. Jesus did historically live, the shroud of him from the tomb is real. Oh dear, JD Justice. Look, hey mate, there's some things I agree with you on. I think that, look, I'm not a mythicist, so mythicists say, hey, there was no figure called Jesus. You know, not only that he wasn't the Messiah or he wasn't the God, he didn't exist at all. Now, I don't take that position. I'm kind of a bit ambivalent about it. I don't really care one way or the other because I don't think there was a God figure called Jesus. So I don't have a stake in that. I don't really mind. I just say, hey, most biblical scholars are not mythicists. People like Bart Ehrman, I really respect. Dr. Kip Davies, he says he's not a mythicist. I know Carrier is. I find Carrier has less, you know, he has less evidence for that. So I just go with the biblical scholars, and they generally say, hey, it was a real itinerant preacher. Whatever else you put onto it, right? Like whatever other things you believe about Jesus, they say, hey, he was probably someone that actually existed. And I say, sure. Yeah, okay, that's fine. That's fine. I don't know about a chance on it. You know, usually we aren't using chances or probabilities for events in the past because probabilities, when applied to events, we want to know, like, because statistics doesn't work like that. Probabilities don't work on single events, right? If I flip a coin and then go, oh, well, it's heads, so that means this coin will always get heads. That's not how that works. So I can't do a probability of a Jesus coming up. That's not a thing we can do. Unless you're doing a Bayesian analysis and then you've got to have these prerequisites. It's not something that I would do. It either has evidence to back it up or it doesn't. And as far as I'm concerned, it doesn't. Now, with the shroud's a really bad example because there's a lot of evidence that the shroud isn't real, sort of not least of all being that the shroud came with a note from the bishop who sent it to the Vatican saying this is a forgery, and he knew the forger that did it. There's been a study recently, a computer modeling study that shows, and, you know, anatomists have said this before. They've said, hey, that cannot be a real human body, right? Like, if that shroud was over a human, it is anatomically incorrect. Okay, it doesn't show what you would see if it was draped over a human. So recently a guy from Brazil did computer modeling of the shroud, and he actually demonstrated by modeling it in a computer that it was draped over a bas relief, a flat, like, protruding relief, rather than an actual human body. Because if it was a human body, it would look completely different. So it was on a bas relief. I'm not sure if you're familiar with a bas relief. It's kind of those carvings in walls that protrude, and they're usually made on the tops of graves. Like, you know, a lord dies or something, and they carve a bas relief in the top of his sarcophagus kind of thing. That is what it was draped over, and they've shown that using computer modeling. So not only does the carbon dating of this particular relic from that is currently in the Vatican, the Shroud of Turin, not only does it show that it comes from about the time of the bishop that sent it in, that backs up that it was not from Christ's time. He also says it's a forgery, says he knew the forger, and computer modeling shows that it was not draped over an actual human. There's so much evidence against it. I don't know how anyone can believe the Shroud of Turin. And I might add that the Catholic Church, the people that actually have the shroud in their possession, they do not confirm it as a relic, as real, and they don't deny that it's real. So they take a neutral position. So it sort of tells me that they kind of know that it's not real, but at the same time, it does get them lots of attention. It is another thing they can use to support their sort of religion. I think they're happy with it not being confirmed and not being denied. Yeah, and Noah dropping all of the marsupials off, even if you said, hey, that the animals got back to Australia via walking, the genetics just do not support that these animals, just the marsupials move down, they're leaving all the other ones. That is ridiculous. They would spread out. Like, animals don't go, oh, well, we're supposed to belong in Australia, let's go over there. That is not how anything works. And I might add, Theo, that Australia is also the only place where you find monotremes, which are the platypus and echidna as well. So somehow the platypus and echidna got over there without leaving any kind of fossil in the Middle East or near the Middle East or anything like that. Comic books, yeah. I mean, I like comic books. Unimaginably pathetic. Well, I can imagine a great deal, Greatest Cult. You may think so. I can imagine. I've seen some weirder creation stories, to be honest with you. I've seen some weirder ones. Like, there's one in Africa where they believe that a god ate something and then vomited forth the world. And I don't know. I've got a soft spot for that one. That is just so patently ridiculous, right? The reason for the boat and not the island is to make sure Noah had ample time to be humiliated building it. Okay, well that's weird. That's weird. The price of prophethood. Okay, that's weird. I mean, he basically said that Noah was blameless and then proceeds to humiliate the guy. That's a bit weird. The Vatican bans a lot of text. Sure does. Yeah. Comic books and death cults will end this sad human experiment. I don't know. I'm more optimistic. I think that, the sort of doomsday stuff, the Armageddon ideas, they've been around for a long time. I was mentioning the other day how people in the time of the Black Death, the plague that went throughout Europe, they thought that was the end times as well, and we're still here. I have a great deal of optimism for humans, because while we stumble and fall, generally we do get back up as well. So I think it's a problem. I think it's a real problem that when you talk about, hey, if there is some sort of, end of the world scenario, some apocalyptic scenario, like, we've got a rogue asteroid headed towards us, there is a certain percentage of the populations. I'm not saying all Christians, right? Not all Christians, but there is a certain percentage of Christians and Muslims and, people of religion who would rejoice and welcome it. And that's a problem, right? That's the problem. Because if there is an end of the world scenario, an apocalyptic, a existential threat, we want to stop it, not encourage it. Okay, we want to stop it. And it does worry me that some of these religious people, when you say, hey, if there's an existential threat to humanity, they're actually like, well, I'd be happy and, encourage it, because that is the end times that was promised us. That's a problem. That's a big problem. And there are people known as accelerationists, people that are trying to actively end the world. And that's a problem. Now, luckily, they're a tiny minority, but it is a problem. When a contract is fulfilled, the contract is over. I mean, there's something to that, sure. Complete, yes. Yes, but that means that, like, the Ten Commandments no longer hold. There's some problems with that, right? You know, the Ten Commandments, the thou shalt have no other God but you, thou shalt not murder, thou shalt not commit adultery, is over. So you can't sort of use that argument if you want to appeal to any of the laws in the Old Testament. And then you've provided a contradiction, because if you're saying it's complete and they no longer apply, that Jesus said that, like, he's here to uphold the laws, that all of the laws still apply. Not one jot nor tittle should be changed until all has come to pass. So there's some problems with that, DeFreak. Comic book Uberfiles. It's actually crazy that an old text could explain space better than science today. What are you talking about? How does it explain space better than science today? I don't understand that. It says the waters above. Space is not water. How does it explain space? And plus, what you've got to understand is that they categorize space as one thing and time as another. That's not true. It's space-time. They are inextricably linked. They are essentially the same. It is the same thing, space-time. So no, it doesn't explain space better than science today. In fact, it doesn't explain space at all. You've got to go in for metaphor and hyperbole to even think that the Bible talks about space. I don't, JD Justice, I'm really sorry, mate. I don't get what you're talking about. Like, it doesn't explain space at all. You know, the idea of space and time being the fabric of this reality, and that time basically shows space how to bend, and space shows time how to run. Like, it doesn't explain any of that. No, not at all. Very prevalent now, was obscure until recent times. Nope. Book of Enoch explicitly makes the claim that all technology was given to mankind by these fallen watchers, even the spear. Okay. Yeah, and there's a religion in Africa that says that a god vomited forth all of creation. It doesn't mean it's true, DeFreak. It doesn't mean it's true. And it's kind of weird. Like, if they gave us this technology, why do we see a progression of, say, Homo habilis, where they start to do tools, and as we get later and later, the tools become more complicated? Kind of weird, don't you think? Shouldn't there just be really well-designed spears instantly instead of the crude tools that Homo habilis was making? Love you to explain that one. Enoch also goes into cosmic being helping Egyptians build the pyramids and a whole array of cool stuff. Okay, fantastic. How do we know it's true? A lot of books go into a lot of different stuff. I don't know, like, they're all contradictory. How do we know they're true? Kind of weird, don't you think? You know, Egyptians have hieroglyphics of, you know, Horus being killed and, you know, being resurrected and has to find his penis. How do we know that's true? It's, you know, just because a book says it, we don't automatically assume it's true. Does God need haircuts, or does he just flood his head? Reading the real questions here. Real questions. Does God have hair? And does it grow? Apparently he doesn't have a penis, according to some of the chat. So, presumably he doesn't have pubic hair either. I don't know. So does he have hair? Does he have hair in the first place? And if so, why? Why does he have hair? Like, I mean, hair's used as a covering. It, like, keeps your head warm. I know, because I go out in the cold and it's freezing on my head. You lose a lot of heat through your head. So, you know, it keeps your head warm. It keeps your head covered from sunlight. Presumably God wouldn't have those problems. So, yeah. Characters in books do not have physical states. Well, I mean, the characters described in books may or may not. Like if, you have an autobiography of Barack Obama or something, yeah, then, yeah, obviously the character in the book doesn't, but the actual person does. The question is whether that person is real or not. Kelly has a question. What happened to all the dead bodies after the waters went away? Well, according to the young Earth creationists, that's what caused the fossils. That's the fossil record, right? So for some reason, those bodies, ultra fast fossilized into the fossils we have today. The weird part is that they're in a sequenced layer that don't cross over from basal or more primitive organisms right up to the modern ones in the fossil record. Why that happened? Who knows? Kent Hovind has a really funny explanation though. Watchers in Prometheus. Biblical story is a retelling on Pandora's box. Biblical fool stories are retelling on Pandora's box. Look, it may be, yeah. Yeah, it may be. That whole thing of telling somebody not to do something, they do it, it introduces all of the evils into the world. There is a parallel there, I will agree, Rembrandt, and welcome. I would ask the question as well, what is hiding in the Arctic ice that we don't know about? Probably viruses and bacteria. We do Arctic or Antarctic are you talking about? I don't know. Either way, we do core samples. We do core samples of glaciers, right? Like of permanent glaciers. So we go to the Antarctic, drill down into the ice, and get a long tube. Here, I'll get a picture of it. Of the ice to do a core sample. So, what's hiding in there? Well, we don't know until we find it, but it's not like we're just leaving it up to guesswork. I think we've gone back like 1.2 million years because of the summer and winter. The ice core, the ice glaciers, they melt and refreeze very, very slightly. But what it does is create these banding that we can tell how many years are in the core sample. And then, we can actually get bubbles from in that ice core sample, and we can tell how old it is, and even when it was around. It's really cool. West Antarctic? Yeah, sure, that'll do. Open the image in a new tab so we can have a look at it. Oh. Oh, hold it. Let's replace. Where are we? There we are. Yeah. So this is an ice core sample from Antarctica. Right. Now, if you're wondering what that is industrialization of humanity, by the way. Yeah. Pretty wild, hey? But that's an ice core sample, and they count the layers in the ice core. And they can get bubbles and find out what the atmosphere was like because of the atmosphere trapped in the ice. It's really cool. I think it's fascinating that they can find out, what the atmosphere was like, 10,000 years ago from these ice core samples. It's pretty cool. It's pretty cool. Where was I? If you get a bunch of comic books together, that mean it's magic. Right. Like we don't read a book and go, well, because it's in a book, it's true. We have to have other stuff in order to say it's true or not. Correct. There's a lot of books that say a lot of things and they're not necessarily true. That is correct. Shouldn't you be hype manning burnt somewhere? I don't know. No, Rembrandt's welcome. I've known Rembrandt. The grossest thing on the ark was the Christians. Well, I don't think they were Christians yet. They were definitely maybe Jewish. Maybe they were Jewish, Israelites. But had Israel even been born then? I'm not 100% sure. Wasn't Israel the child of Noah? I never looked up Noah's children, did I? No, Shem, Japheth, and Ham. Yes. I'm not 100% Israel was actually a thing yet. So, yeah, definitely weren't Christians, though. Were termites included with the wooden ship? Maybe. I mean, I wouldn't imagine the Ark would have survived long if it had termites. I mean, the largest ship ever built. Um, there was a ship that America built, a wooden ship that was sort of comparable in size, and it needed bilges going. It couldn't go out into rough water. It was basically it sunk and floundered. I think it was the USS Independence or something. It was a large ship, and it basically was a problem. So, yeah, termites as well. No, that's a problem. Okay, the freak, stop. Have we got mods in here? Like, seriously, I'm not going to allow this. Do I not have mods in this? The freak, you are going to have a bit of a chill out, okay? Have 10 minutes. No, no. Sorry I didn't see that earlier. Stop. Seriously, that's not cool, man. Like, what? Oh, Rembrandt, you too. Holy crap. Like, seriously, can't you just be adults and have a disagreement? Seriously? You have 10 as well. Rembrandt, don't come in here doing, like, frigging that kind of homophobic insults. Well, yeah, I get what you're saying. To me, it does seem like, when people are talking about whether the God of the Old Testament is Jesus or, the Trinity kind of thing, it really does seem like people arguing over who is stronger, Goku or Superman. That's what it appears to me, because it really does seem like people arguing over whether, was Poseidon or was Ares stronger, kind of thing, or was Hades stronger? It really does seem like people arguing over, fictional stuff to me, but they do believe it. So yeah. Why are we not allowed to go? Oh, are you a flat earther as well? Oh, JD Justice, I'm sorry if you are. You are. You are allowed to go to Antarctica without signing an NDA. No, it's not blockaded, mate. It's not. The final experiment, right? Who did the final experiment? Oh god, I should know his name. It was an expedition down to Antarctica, and they took flat earthers with them to see the 24-hour sun in summer. What you'll have to do if you go to Antarctica is agree to the ecological preservation laws down there, because what happened was that the sort of the people or the countries that have part of Antarctica came together and they said, hey, this place is really fragile. Let's not put any armies down there, and let's make sure we're all preserving it, because it's a very, very delicate ecosystem that can collapse, and we don't want that. It's too scientifically valuable. So we want to have these rules down there. Like, you're not going to just go and drill for oil, or you're not going to go and destroy any of the ice flows or anything like that. So they came up with this thing. You're allowed to go down there. It's not blockaded. They do tours. The final experiment took Austin Whitsitt, Jeranism, and a couple of other flat earthers down there, as well as some people from the globe Earth position, to see the sun sit for 24 hours circling the sky, just as the globe model predicted. So no, flat earthers have been down there. Austin Whitsitt is still a flat earther. I don't think he's given any kind of explanation as to the 24-hour sun. Jeranism decided that flat earth is impossible if there's a 24-hour sun in the Antarctic. So I'm really sorry, mate, but that is patently untrue. It's untrue. And look up the final experiment, because it really was a good experiment. It was a good, well, this is the hypothesis. This is what would prove which side is correct. Let's go and do it with both sides to make sure they're not making it up. It was a really good experiment. Jesus was even more immoral? No, I won't agree with that, mate. I think that Yahweh is really bad. I wouldn't agree with that. I think that in the Bible there's some writings of Jesus that are pretty good. You know, they're good, solid, ways to organize a society so that it doesn't have problems with people destroying each other. Like, don't get me wrong, I don't think everything in the Bible is bad. I think that some of it's good. I think there is bad things that Jesus has said, but compared to Yahweh, no, no. I'm sorry, Rembrandt, no, no. I have been, and that's not true. Yep, yep, yep. Oh, Cambridge Bay. Okay, okay. So presumably, is that the Canadian part of it, or I know that Canada has a slice of it down there. I know Australia does as well. Oh, look, JD Justice, you can go inland. So the people who went down there in the final experiment, they could go anywhere they want, except they had to survey it first, right? So when you go into Antarctica, it is dangerous. There's crevices that can just, like, they look solid, they can just drop you in them. So it's incredibly dangerous. It's a dangerous place to be. So they want to make sure you're safe. But they could have requested to go anywhere. I don't know where their camp was on the final experiment, but look it up. It's really interesting. It's really interesting. Union Glacier Camp. Okay. Union Glacier Camp. Okay. Where am I? Sorry, trying to get rid of that. Let's see. Ooh, where's my share? Okay. So this is the edge of Antarctica. There's the Southern Ocean, right? And that's the Antarctic. They went to Union Glacier Camp, which is all the way. Wow, Google Maps, thanks. Oh, I think I just doxed myself. Uh-oh. I'm not doing that. So all the way down here, basically, is where they went. So a fair amount. So what's the Union Glacier? Right, is there. So we go out, 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 out. So that, yeah, they went all the way down to there. A really long way inland, or inland in ice, basically. So yeah. No Christian has ever. No, that's not true. Come on, let's be real. There has Christians that read the Bible, entire Bible. Yes, there are biblical scholars who are Christian. They've read the entire Bible. I don't agree with them. I think it's horrific how little Christians, how few Christians have actually read the Bible. I think that's horrific, and I think that the Bible, when you read it all of the Bible, it really does, like, it more tends towards, yeah, this is a work of mythology than um place you're allowed to go to. Look, JD Justice, look up the final experiment. Like, explain the 24-hour sun, have fun. I would love to know your explanation behind that. I really would. Why there is a 24-hour sun in the summer in both the Arctic Circle, and in the Antarctic. So why is that the case? Would be what I'd be asking, mate. I really would like to know your explanation behind that. And a few other things besides, like circumpolar star rotation. This is something I have debated quite a great deal, JG Justice. I sort of, I get where you're coming from, but it does seem like, to me, it is a religious belief rather than one based upon science and evidence. Shroud of Turin. Yeah, apparently so. Apparently so. Shroud of Turin. No, we've gone there, Bree. I've explained all of the evidence why the Shroud of Turin came from, a bishop talking about a forger in the 13th century or whatever. No. Koalas don't have gonorrhea. How dare you suggest such a thing of our prized national anthem, Kelly? Our anthem? Animal. Our prized national anthem, and you say they have got. How dare you? How dare you? They have chlamydia. Just admit. Oh, come on, guys. Seriously. To bolt to suddenly disappear. Yeah. Also apt for Harold Holt. Yeah. Harold Holt, heated bolt. Yeah. Oh, the Shroud of Jochen is in Turin. No, I thought the Vatican took it back. I took I thought the Vatican took it back. Isn't it locked up in the Vatican's vaults at the moment? Look, if it's on display in Turin, that's news to me. I thought that they had put it away because they didn't want it to be, they didn't want it to be, handled or disintegrated by people because it's too fragile. It's probably more like their evidence for it being real is fragile, but never mind. Humans love authoritarian cults for one simple reason. As Mussolini said, the simple truth is men are sick of liberty. Yeah, I don't think they are. I don't think men are sick of liberty at all. I think that people think they can get to a better life by way of ostracizing and degrading other humans. And I think they're wrong. I think that, the vast amounts of propaganda involved with these fascist organizations shows that it is not just people naturally go towards this. I don't think that's the case, or they wouldn't have to do that. They really do trick people into thinking that getting rid of someone in the other, like someone who is othered, that other person, that other race, that other religion, that will solve all their problems. And of course it never does, but it's just a way for these people to take power. And I wouldn't listen to anything that Mussolini said. I mean, Mussolini's a jerk. I feel like most of these people don't want a combo, just kind of trashing each other's instead of a logical or overall decent conversation. I'm not here to convert. I want to discourse. Yeah, well, I mean, people may say things that you don't like, sure. If they're insulting you, I certainly have issue. Like the freaking Rembrandt going at it right now. Stop that. But if you do have beliefs, you've got to be, you've got to have the beliefs questioned. If you question my beliefs, sure, go for it, please. And I'm happy to. No problem. But I mean, if this is an atheist channel as well, so you are going to get atheists in here, including myself. So that is if that's a problem, I understand. But that is the way that they are. That is what they believe. But, here's something to consider, and it's one of the things that has occurred to me in all my debating, which I've realized that I've done a lot of debates. Like, I want more, but I realize I've done a lot of them. That if somebody fails to appeal to reason and is just being childish and saying, hey, you're ridiculous for believing that, that's good for you. Because you can say, hey, that's not an argument. That's not logical. It's not rational. It's not a rational argument. All you're doing is just saying it's ridiculous. That's not an argument. An argument is when you say, hey, look at this thing. This is the evidence, and this is why I believe that you're wrong. Even if they're saying this is why you're really wrong and it is ridiculous, they're giving some sort of reasonable, logical reason for that. It's good for you if they don't, because if you want to show that somebody's belief is erroneous, what you do is point to them not giving evidence of it. That's a good way to do it. So, it was something that clicked in my mind ages ago, that when people were like saying, hey, you're just ridiculous for believing in this, that, or the other, that's good for me. That's you showing that you don't have evidence. Platypus would be fine with the flood. So what do you mean we are all the Shroud of Turin on this blessed? What do you mean by that? I'm not a Shroud of Turin. Stop. I'm not a Shroud at all. What are you talking about? Platypus should be fine with the flood, swum back to Australia or stayed in the region. Oh, come on. Look, they live in ponds, my guy. They don't take to the ocean. Like, come on now. They live in ponds. This is ponds. That's me. I'm more of a fan, not an active accelerationist. Yeah, but what if you're wrong, DeFreak? What if an apocalypse coming is just an unfortunate side effect? What if you're wrong that it's the glorious end times kind of thing? It means that you're not trying to prevent something that could be prevented. It's a problem. Time, space, time? No, just space time. Time, space, time. I'm not sure what that is, but yeah, space time. Yeah, it's not two separate things. It's just dimensions of the same thing. Like, we know that now. Bible does not say that. Why do children always get half of their mum's genes and half of their dad's genes if evolution isn't a fact? Okay, so they don't get half. Recombination's kind of weird. There's a process called passing over. And I know that sounds like a budget, speak with the dead show kind of thing. Passing over. Yeah, you can speak to your loved ones on passing over. No, it just means that they transfer genes in the recombination process. It's not always, it's kind of a bit random, to be honest with you, but yeah, I don't know. Because they think of evolution as the theory of evolution, the entire thing, whereas evolution is really just the change in allele frequency over time, or the change in heritable characteristics or heritable traits over time. So, evolution is getting your mum and dad's genes in a random order. That is evolution. So yeah, it's kind of weird. But, creationists will they'll misconstrue what we mean by evolution a lot of the time. Kind of weird thing. Enoch talks about aliens, but we haven't explored space completely. I don't think it talks about aliens. It does talk about, some kind of creature, but how do you know it's aliens? How do you know it's aliens? I don't know. Look, JD Justice, I've said this before, okay? There was a book that I used to get into, Chariots of the Gods. It was Eric von Daniken and his hypothesis that gods are aliens. Now, there's no real solid evidence to back that up. So if you're thinking critically, you wouldn't follow that, because all of it is circumstantial, a lot of conjecture, a lot of hypotheses. But I will say I find it more plausible that gods were aliens than I do of the Christian beliefs of a god being a, supernatural being kind of thing. I find it more plausible. But having said that, I don't believe it because there's no evidence for it. It's just a lot of conjecture that sort of explains this. I might skip. Sorry, my throat is actually getting sore. I've been talking so much. Like, holy crap. How long have I been going? Almost 3 hours. Woof. God decides to knit in the womb. A person who has nothing in common with his parents for a prank. Hey, God works in mysterious ways, which is the excuse that's always given when there is no answer. Yeah, okay. Apparently God has breath, which seems weird for an immaterial being. Also, why doesn't he need arms or legs, or are opposable thumbs required to create universes? I don't know. I've heard various explanations, Hillhugger, that, we're creating the image of God, but that God image is a spiritual image, not his physical one. And I've heard the opposite. I've heard all kinds of things. So until, I guess my position is, until they can agree on something to actually analyze instead of argue all the time, I don't know what we're supposed to do about that. It does seem weird for an immaterial being to have any kind of form whatsoever or image whatsoever. Seems weird. So basically they're saying right after the flood was all over, the bodies after the water went away, turned to fossils immediately. Yes. Which the Wyoming, yes. Cool, thank you. The Wyoming, you're right. It was the Wyoming, was the largest wooden ship and floundered in the water, used to leak constantly. It had bilge pumps, which are pumps designed to move the water out. I'm prepared to bet that the Ark did not have bilge pumps. The best you could get at that time was people bailing water. With 8 people, as well as taking care of all the animals, I have concerns about the labour needed to keep this ship afloat. Admonishing adults for believing in fairy tales equals shifting on people. Christian logic, it's finest. Yeah, look. Some people are going to say, hey, this is mythology. And I agree. It reads like mythology. It seems like mythology. It has all the arcs and the structure of mythology. The fact that the flood story had, it is remarkably similar to the Atrahasis and the Epic of Gilgamesh that were before it. It reads like mythology, and they read like mythology. You went to the Arctic. Okay. Yeah, but they did go to Union Glacier. Yeah. God gave people manna to eat. Jesus gave people bread and fish. Well, we don't know what manna is. Like, we've got no idea. Okay, that's just a bit timed out for something or other. Yeah, no, look, Rembrandt, look, I don't mind a bit of spirited debate and a bit of passionate debate in the chat. When you're calling people names and making slurs and stuff, no. Be kind to people, be respectful. I get, hey, look, I get things can be passionate. I've been passionate in debates. You get fired up. I totally get it. But there's a limit. There's really a limit. Please. And I know DeFreak can go off the rails upon occasion. I've known DeFreak for a while, but he knows he can't do that in here. I don't tolerate it. One by Land says aliens and tech being mistaken for gods make better sense than many religious texts. Correct. Yeah, I would agree. But I don't believe that ever. Either, sorry. I don't believe it either, just because there's no real evidence for it. Like, all of it is like, well, how did they do this? If we don't know, it must have been aliens. No, that is absolutely a logical fallacy. If we don't know how they did something and the ancients did something, then we don't know. There's no reason to insert aliens, a god, spirits, or anything else into there. It's okay to just say, I don't know. Right, so how did they lift this block? Well, people of that time, they used to use, primitive cranes. If we don't know how they did it, then we don't know how they did it. There's no reason to say aliens or gods or anything else, or even, superhuman strength potions. I don't know. There's no reason to say any of these. We just say we don't know. And that's important, because if you do get the wrong answer, you're inserting something with absolutely no basis. So, but yeah, it does make more sense to me, because aliens are natural, and we've seen plenty of natural things, while a god is supernatural, and we've seen no supernatural things whatsoever. Or at least I've seen no evidence of supernatural things. You may disagree, but that's okay. We can disagree. We don't have to fight about it. We can just say, hey, we disagree. That's cool. Anyway. So that brings me to the end of the show. I hope you've enjoyed this very, very special Reddit post-a-loser. We will be back next week with more Reddit posts for Is God the Arsehole? And you can vote along. Oh, what was the last vote, by the way? Oh, 71%. Well, I'm disappointed, chat. 72%. You got it directly on 69 in the last time, and this is unacceptable. 71's unacceptable. Come on now. What the hell? You managed to hit 69. I'm disappointed, but that's okay. I'm still so glad to see you here, chat. You're amazing. Lots of love. Don't forget, we've got the member stream tomorrow, so if you are a member, come along. I'll be playing games, I'll be chatting, I'll be talking about whatever the hell I want to talk about, because it's my channel, it's a member stream. And then the next day, I will be having our Fundamentalist Fail. Well, I'll be pulling up some kind of claim or video by a fundamentalist and going through why it made me laugh or why I am absolutely aghast at what they've said, and is always a lot of fun. On Saturday night Eastern time, that's Sunday morning Australian, I should be back over on Better Than Embers for our usual debate review, and we are doing, hopefully get through the last stage of Destiny versus Dinesh D'Souza, which should be it's been a hoot already. It should be good. So thank you so much for joining me. If you want to and feel like you've been entertained at all, don't forget to like, subscribe. It helps me out a great deal. Share this with your friends if you do want to. I will not say no. Do be kind to yourself. Be kind to yourself. If you don't know something, say I don't know. You don't have to, say I have to know something. It's okay. We can find out together. It's all right. If you don't know, you don't know. Be kind. It's okay not to know. Be kind to each other. Other people don't know stuff. Don't treat them badly just because they don't know something, okay? We can learn together again. Anyway, do take care, and I will see you in the next one. Bye, everybody.